please welcome my guest for this evening, Grimmi.
Oh, hello?
Hello, Grimmi. I realized that I forgot to put on the BGM, so there we go. Yay!
It's okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
woo, hello.
Welcome on in, Grimmi. You actually sent me several fun BGMs that we're going to be going through tonight, but for starters, for anyone who might not be familiar with you, if you could introduce yourself.
Oh, hi. I'm Grimmi, or I guess Grivelia Grimoire. No one really calls me that though. And I'm 105 years young, going on 106. I play horror games, and I'm not a ghost. I just got trapped in a time warp or something. I don't really know what happened, but I think I'm aging again. So yeah. Hello. How are all you guys?
We're going to have a very good time, and we also have... Dang it, I've forgotten his name again. I feel really bad. Darn it. Your cat, not Pumpkin, the other one. Ugh, we just went over this before we started. I'm blanking.
It's okay. It's Skelter.
Skelter. I was like, it's not Skeletor. It's something with Skel, though.
I'm very good if they were Skeletor. I don't think they have any bones. Well, they might. You never know with this guy.
Indeed. Well, welcome on in, Grimmi. That, you know, one of the things that I'm getting worse at over time is remembering where I found my guests. That I was rated into you by somebody. I don't know who. I'm pretty sure it was a past guest. That's sort of how I wind up finding people nowadays. That I explore a bit on my own, but raids have become a very reliable introduction method for me. And I definitely remember that this was probably, I'd say about 3-4 months ago at this point, actually. And it was just, a couple minutes in your stream was like, okay, I gotta keep an eye on Grimmi.
Well, that's really nice of you, but oh my gosh, I don't know if I could remember who would have rated me like 4 months ago.
A couple folks were guessing it could have been bad at video games, which I could absolutely see.
Oh, she's incredible. I love that she's willing to murder anyone that's, she's willing to murder. I like that. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that I had her on my show. It was probably was over a year ago now. But it was a lot of fun. There was an instance where it turned out that her redeems were still on, and so people were bonking her via her chat, and it was appearing on my VDO. And when we first discovered that, I just lost it. That is probably the hardest I've laughed on air. It was a good time. But anyways,
really
also a couple folks in chat are saying you might be a little bit soft.
Oh, sorry. I can turn on my mic.
You might need to bump yourself up just a little bit there.
There we go. Does that help?
I think so. Chat, let me know, because I can hear Grimmi, but the important part is that you all can hear her as well. So, anyways, Grimmi, you, like you said, specialize in horror. That I myself am a total wimp when it comes to horror. That I enjoy watching folks play horror games. I enjoy reading the synopses of horror movies on Wikipedia, but I usually do not. I'm not the type to play those games or watch those movies myself. Was there a particular point that you sort of realized, oh wow, I really enjoy this genre? Was there any introduction to it for you, or was it just something you sort of discovered over time?
Well, I was actually, I don't mean it in like a negative way. Like, I was also like a huge wimp for a very long time, when it came to horror games. I think the only thing that really changed was that I started realizing if I could physically make myself play them, the stories were very interesting. Like, they were kind of like presented in such a way that like you don't really get with most movies or like television shows a lot of the time. Like, it's not that those are like necessarily bad or wrong, it's just they have a very interesting way of portraying atmosphere and portraying like characters' emotions and like sense of self. So I got really into them for that reason, with like Silent Hill and Resident Evil and games like that mostly starting out. And eventually got into those little RPG Maker games. I don't know if you've seen those, but like Eve and Madfather, and they all have really different really different ways of telling stories, but they're all really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I bumped up things a bit, and I might have bumped up myself a little bit too much. But yes, I have seen those. I'm familiar with those, and like you said, horror really has a tendency to go really interesting places with their narrative, with their atmosphere and move overall. And that's part of why I enjoy watching them so much, because even if it's not something that I'm going to go out of my way and play, that I still have that interest in the narrative, and I like seeing others going through the different things. You know, it's such an interesting thing that I'm not even really able to figure out why there is that difference for me of just, you know, yeah, I don't think it even is that I would have nightmares. It's just not something I really enjoy playing through on my own, I suppose. But watching others playing it is really, really enjoyable for me, and just one of those things I've discovered about myself as a content consumer, I suppose.
Yeah. I think it's kind of scary, but like I think that when you kind of have to put yourself into a horror game, it's a little different than sitting down for a movie or, like Kid is saying, although very rudely, when you kind of have to sit down for a game like Visage or something, like you kind of are just in the moment and in the action, and you know it kind of does feel like horrible things are about to happen to you.
Mhm.
When you're just watching a movie, you're like, oh no, this person's gonna get hurt. But when you're playing a game, you're like, oh, I'm going to die. I'm going to physically die. Something bad is going to happen to me. Which is, yeah, I can totally understand why you want to avoid that. I sometimes also feel that way.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, I love ones that really deconstruct genres, ones that are parodies. That when it comes to films, I love things like Zombieland, and I suppose that's much more comedy than horror. But things like Cabin in the Woods, I love, because that's a deconstruction of horror for sure.
Yeah, those two are both really good. Like, really good. Cabin in the Woods was, no, I completely agree. I just realized I was gonna spoil it for everyone, though, so...
The
Totally
thing's
agree.
been out for 10 years at this point. I think it's basically at the statute of limitations for spoilers, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay, dang. Yeah, I'd love to see a game based on that. That would be really interesting.
Have you ever played? It's a board game, not a video game, but Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Oh no, I haven't. That sounds really neat though. Betrayal in House of the Hill?
Yeah. Extra Fuzzy in the chat saying you're still a little bit soft.
Oh, thank you, Extra Fuzzy. Let me get a little... There we go. I think I've pumped it up as much as I can at this point, so hopefully
Oh yeah,
it's...
no, I can definitely hear a difference on that one. So hopefully that did the trick.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
Yeah. And I've also bumped myself down just a pinch, just to compensate and make sure that we're not blowing things out. But Betrayal at House on the Hill is a really delightful board game, and it's a mix of co-op and versus. So it starts with, as the title would suggest, you and up to 3 others are discovering and exploring this haunted house on a hill. And you go through, and the first part of the game is collaborative exploration, that you're going into different rooms, finding different items, increasing some stats, but you also find what are called omens. And after each omen is found, you have to make a haunt roll. And after a certain amount of rolls, after each roll, the threshold, so to speak, increases. And whenever you make a roll that is below the haunt threshold, the haunt begins. And based on the room that you are in and the omen that you find, so there's, I think, 50 different iterations and combinations in the base game, and they've had several expansions at this point. But based on the where and the what of the item and the room that triggers the haunt is any number of these different scenarios where you could have one of the 4 players who is now a traitor, and that they are actually revealed to be in league with this otherworldly power, or they might get possessed or consumed, and that the traitor then gets a set of instructions that they are given in a book, and the other players have their instructions, and they need to be the first to complete their respective goals. Usually that is defeat all of the player characters or defeat the traitor, but then there's other ones of, collect certain items which are now appearing in rooms. But that it's this type of thing where you have this shift mid-game going from collaborative to competition, which is not super common in really any type of game, whether it be video games or board games. And that they do all these really different ones of, there's a vampire scenario, there's one where a giant bird picks up the house and there is no trader in that particular one, but you all need to find parachutes that are scattered throughout to be able to escape before, you know, the bird carries you off to its presumably large nest for its presumably large offspring.
Wow, that's awesome. I want to play that. Yeah, I'm writing that down right now so I can check it out later. Thank you.
Yeah, remind me later. I'll send you a link that it's not a super new game. That they've had some expansions over the years, and it's a lot of fun. It probably sounds a bit more difficult when I, you know, try and explain it all out like this, but it's actually not too difficult of a board game. That as long as you're, you know, at least relatively versed in tabletop stuff, it's not actually super complex. I really enjoy it. It's one that I used to play with my friends a lot.
Oh wow, yeah, I'm definitely gonna check it out. I wonder if VTubers could even play it.
I feel like it's probably one that's somewhere in Tabletop Simulator. I don't know if they have a standalone version of it that's, you know, on Steam or anything. I haven't checked, but I'd be very surprised if it wasn't on Tabletop Sim somewhere.
Yeah. Oh man, I gotta get some of my horror VTuber friends together. That's gonna be rad. Thank you. Oh,
Oh, my
I'm
pleasure.
excited. Thank you.
So you mentioned Ib and Madfather and the visual novel style ones. I'm blanking on the name of the system that they're built in. But that
RPG Maker. Sorry,
RPG Maker,
it's
thank
a good
you.
thing with it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like I've really seen a lot more of that type of independently made games in general, and especially in the horror genre. That's been one that's been really cool to see over the past couple of years. And this is probably because I myself am now watching more stream content than ever before. Surprise, surprise. So this stuff probably has been around, but for me, it's been a fun little discovery. Do you recall which the first, I suppose, non-AAA horror title you ever played was?
Oh man. The first non-AAA horror title I ever played. It wasn't. I don't even know if this would be a horror game. I don't know if this would actually be playing it. But when I was, I think a few people had this experience. So when I was young, like, and probably not old enough to be on this website, but I went to Something Awful to read Danganronpa. Like, yeah.
Yeah, because I suppose, yeah, Danganronpa, that's not going to be what I would consider AAA. That it's not super independent, but that's definitely that's I would call it a cult classic at this point. That for anyone who isn't familiar, it's a game that has actually been adapted into an anime or several animes at this point, and it's this combination of murder mystery along with sort of, I suppose, social exploration in a sense. That basically you have these characters that are all specialists in one thing or another, and when one of them dies, they have a classroom trial, and I'll sort of let you take things from here, Grimmy, on what makes this series really unique.
Yeah, it was definitely, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but it's definitely one of those games where if you're like a child, you're just like, this is the coolest thing ever in the entire world. It's so awesome. Like, whoa, they could all die, and this could all be crazy, and like everything could go wrong, but it could all be really cool. Like stuff like that. Like it kind of I think it's a lot of people's first introduction to a thing where like the stakes feel a little higher because everyone could foreseeably pass away no matter who they are in the story. And I definitely really enjoyed that about it. Like it was like I said, I wasn't even playing the game when I was younger. I was just kind of reading it as it came out. Like it was almost like a television show or a soap opera. But you essentially get introduced to characters and you see them kind of like killed off over time in like really exaggerated weird ways, and it kind of clicks. It's just like a very strange interpretation of like a very grim kind of weird concept, and I think a lot of people really vibed with it. It got very popular to the point where, yeah, you were saying it got like an anime or like 3 or 4 animes, I think, actually, and a bunch of sequels and stuff. Like, and I think a lot of like non-AAA games are kind of like that, where you get like an idea of like the person's world and like the concepts they want to go into, and then you kind of just get to like explore a really strange kind of narrative that they go into without it kind of being like well, you can't kill that character, they're gonna be the most popular. Or you can't do this early on, like, that's gonna make everyone go like, oh, we only have these guys, like, later on, like, um, and then, yeah.
Ooh, you just got real quiet again.
Oh, shoot, I don't know why that keeps happening, that's strange. It might have something to do with VOD Ninja or something, or VDO Ninja, but...
Sure. Grimmi's been having some quirky, haunted tech stuff today that her keyboard stopped working. Unfortunately, this isn't a typing show, so we're fine there. But the tech gremlins might be attacking, but we'll work through it.
Holy crud. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Let me,
You're back a bit better than you were before, so,
Okay.
yeah,
I guess
hopefully.
yeah. When it happens, just tell me and I'll start yelling, so... yeah.
Sounds good. So, yeah, that series, it's a very interesting one because it also, one of the central themes of it is the concepts of hope and despair, and that there is a broader narrative that it starts to tell. And I don't want to get too far into that one because then we're going to get into some crazier lore. And honestly, it's been a while since I played. Well, I never played through the game. I only saw the anime, but it's been a while since I've seen the anime. So I'm probably also not the best one to talk about for that one, but it's a fun series for sure. Definitely recommend that folks check it out and at least see if that's for them, because even for me, as someone who, like I said, is not super into horror, that's one that sort of skirts the line, and it's, at least in my eyes, perhaps a bit more thriller than horror. I see why you would put it in the horror genre, and I think that's a totally fair classification. I think that's just, for me, that it doesn't cross over, and is part of why I was really having actually a good time with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's, I think it's definitely a very, good, I'd say, like, the first horror game I played was probably Silent Hill 3, where...
Now that's a horror game.
yeah, but, well, I kind of played it. What happened was, I got, like, a PlayStation 2, and I got Silent Hill 3, and the games weren't $700 billion yet. So, they were just old, so they were kind of just, like, cheap. So, it was kind of nice, but I got those, I set it up, and I was so excited to play it. I had read, like, all the lore and stuff on it, like, online. And in Silent Hill 3, I read the guide really intensely and went like, okay, in the carnival area, you can't get hurt. Once you walk through the other area, you can get hurt, so I spent like 5 or 10 minutes hyping myself up. And then I walked into the other area and spent like 5 or 10 minutes just terrified and standing there and like breathing hard and going like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And then like after standing there for that long without moving, one of the zebra dogs came and like smacked me really hard and I ran out of the room.
Oh
so
no!
yeah, I was not old enough to attempt that yet. But that was my first attempt at a horror game, probably.
Gotcha. One other game that you mentioned to me when we were talking the other day that I'm just completely unfamiliar of is called Angels of Death.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'd love to learn what this one's all about.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's one of those RPG Maker games, and the reason I'm such a huge fan of them is because they're usually just made by like one person or two people. Another good one is Your Turn to Die, like very similar to Danganronpa, but kind of like worked off of like all of the themes and stuff you
I
see in
remember
Danganronpa.
seeing you streaming that one
Oh, that one's
relatively
so
recently,
fun.
sometime in the past couple weeks, and I was getting those Danganronpa vibes from it.
Yeah, like I feel like I don't like comparing the two and being like this one's so much better, cause like how do I put it? I feel like so many things have to see the initial game and get inspiration from something, and then, you know, get inspiration from other games and bring them all back to interest in order to create like a different type of game and a game more based off of it. So, but it's definitely a really good successor to games like that if you ever would want to check it out. And it's, but I won't go too into spoilers with that, or into Angels of Death. But Angels of Death is an RPG Maker game. It seems to be made by like one lady or one fella. The people that make them are usually very what's the word? A lot of them are very secretive about their identity, which I think is really neat. Like you don't know too much about them, just like kind of if you've heard of Yumi Nikki, another RPG Maker game,
Mhm.
everyone that makes them is kind of like shrouded in mystery, which is kind of neat.
Well, you know, I gesture broadly at VTubing.
Yeah, that's very true too. You don't know who anyone is or like what they really get up to in their own time, which is really neat. Um, but yeah, it's Angels of Death is like this RPG maker game where you play as like this young girl that wakes up in this weird area. I'm actually gonna be playing it later tonight at 7 p.m. So Pacific time. If I know
Boy, oh
time
boy.
zones are also insane now. I was so used to just being in Pacific time with all my friends, but now, um, but yeah, you play as a young girl and you wake up in a strange room, and then it's your job to kind of figure out how to get home while you're working together with a psychopathic, almost Jeff the Killer creepypasta fella that's kind of nuts, but also kind of like, oh, I guess I'll hang out with you, kid. So it's gonna be neat.
Well, I've got nobody else here, so might as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he goes into. He's just like, well, alright, sure. What's there to lose? And you don't get those with AAA games. Like, you usually have, like, it'd probably go through, like, and I don't mean it in a negative way, I know they have to make money, but, it'd probably go through a system of just like, do we know that people like the little girl? Should her hair be maybe orange? I don't
Yeah, you're
really
gonna
know
have a
about the
lot more.
blonde.
You're gonna have
Yeah.
more market research, perhaps,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
a bit more fine tuning, but also at the same time, with things that are going to be, single person or small team projects, that you're really going to have that personal touch that can really be felt and seen throughout the game. Because naturally, when you're working with a AAA title, AAA budget, that you're going to have hundreds of people
Mhm.
working on these games, and that means they can be really polished. That means you can do some really cool
Yeah.
things that you might not be able to with a single or small team. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's usually not going to be then the original writer who is the person who is actually seeing every line of dialogue through, and who is doing the debugging, and who is having personal oversight of all the visuals and saying, yes, this is what I am envisioning for my story, for my game. But when you have this single person or small handful of people teams, that you're going to have that personal touch, that oversight, for lack of a better term, where the person who had this initial idea is going to see everything from beginning to end. And even if they aren't necessarily the only person with their hands on it, that every person on that small team is going to see every bit of that game before it goes out the door, and that they're going to hopefully have that collaborative or individual effort, and that it means that they're able to really see things closer to their initial vision than any AAA title is going to be able to, just, by a matter of process.
Oh, exactly. 1000%. It's exactly how you say it. And I think and I think there's, absolutely people have every right to criticize whatever they want to and stuff. Like, I'm not saying like, how dare you say this about Horizon Zero Dawn or something. I'm just saying I think people vastly underestimate how hard it is to make a game once you have like 1,000 people involved.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Oh,
oh
yeah.
gosh, yeah. Like, cause it's just like, okay, the people that are gonna make the models, they're over there and they have to work with the art team. But does the art team really understand what the music's doing? Does the music really understand what, like, the voice acting's doing? Does the voice acting director really know what, like, the model team is doing? Do they really know what, like, the music team is doing? And like, getting all of that to sync together.
You have usually
Yeah.
an entire team, just the production team,
Yeah.
whose entire job is to make sure all these other teams know what the heck they're doing. Also,
Yeah.
Godling, welcome in, but if you could please keep things to English. Also, I missed Vibing Tacos. Thank you for the follow. I missed that a while back. My bad.
Oh, hi, Tacos. Um, yeah, it's no, I feel you. Like, and then it depends. Like, if one person's kind of off, or like one person doesn't report something, or like a few people just kind of like don't have the easiest time getting everything together, or God forbid one team runs out of time while another team's waiting on them, then it's just like, oh, okay, this is just gonna have to be something we rush, and
Yep.
that's not something people usually really think about with that. But
Yep. In the
with the
industry, you call
yeah,
that blockers and dependencies, where it's
yeah,
that one team literally can't do something until another team has done their thing. That, for instance, you can't have QA do a test with all of the character models until all the character
yeah,
models are done. You can't test the multiplayer functionality until the engineering team has stood up the multiplayer networking functions. You
Yeah.
can't have somebody do the voice acting until the script's done. And there's
Yeah.
all these different things, and production's obviously not limited just to the gaming industry, that this is something that you see in everything from product industries, film, what have you. But
Yeah.
these are the struggles and just the extra red tape and processes that come along with AAA. And like we said, that you can do some really cool things that just
Hmm.
one person or half a dozen people can't do on their own.
Yeah.
But, these are the pros and cons of each process.
Yeah, it's really rough. And then if you even have a single person that like, you get all your marketing done, you do your QA, and then I know a lot of big games like they have gigantic leaks where like they'll get a testing group in and someone will tell everyone the entire story and then it's just like "Ugh." Like all of that work like there's just been like I but anyways, yeah, that's AAA can be so intense, but then there's also so many like things that can like kind of happen. And meanwhile, you have games like again like Your Turn to Die or I know people were mocking me in the chat with Abaddon, but the people that make those games are usually just a small team or one or two people, and they're not going to show anyone until they're done with them, and they're not going to like change anything. So it's much, I feel like, easier for them to kind of like tell the exact story they want to do, uh, instead of just some horrible like tiny detail happening where like something gets leaked or like the internet kind of has like this very negative perception of it like before anything can even go live and it's just they're two very different ways of making games, and I kind of almost want to see if AAA could get back to a point where and not even in like a negative way, but sometimes I just kind of want to see what a AAA game could do without like anyone coming in for like a lot of big testing and changing things around, and just kind of see like a creator's original vision to the extent we had like back when I don't know if you were super into gaming back when like BioWare was making like the first Mass Effect and Dragon Age and stuff, and like it seemed like there was still for sure testing, but it just wasn't like, okay, what about her hair? Should we make it purple? No, okay, no, okay, I don't think they're gonna believe purple. Like just little things like that, like
Yeah, that you see a lot of difference when something is doing its first go around versus when it is an established franchise. And
yeah,
obviously the industry at large is just much bigger and more complex than it used to be, just because, well, gaming has been getting bigger in general, and that's a good
oh
thing, that more
yeah,
people are playing games than ever
yeah,
before, which means there's more money in it than ever before, which means more things can see the light of day. And that's before we get into the fact that the barrier to entry technology wise has just gone so down over the years, that it used to be, if you couldn't produce at scale and get these special licenses, that you couldn't produce something for the N64 or for PlayStation or Xbox. But now we have things like Steam, we have things like RPG Maker, where people are able
yeah,
to really see their visions through without having to buy a whole new set of tech, or at least certainly not to the degree that it used to be required. And uh, it you get some instances of things like Devolver Digital, or these publishers who pick up these smaller games, and I think that's the closest we're really going to get nowadays, because you're not going to see BioWare or someone just give total free reign to the Mass Effect or the Dragon Age team. It's not
yeah,
practical for a established franchise like that has so many expectations on it. But when
exactly,
you have these publishers that are going to be working with smaller entities like Devolver or anything of that sort, that they usually will go in and say, all right, we see your vision, and usually we are able to see a working prototype at the very least, and we'll then back it and give them a bit of guidance, a bit of oversight. But I think that's what we're seeing more and more nowadays, at least in terms of games that are going to be able to get larger budgets, larger release publicity campaigns, and
hmm,
still retain that small team, small creator feel.
yeah. The double A Devolver Digital is also like my favorite game studio. I love how they do everything, or I guess
They've
publisher I should
really
say.
established themselves over the past, I'd say at this point, a bit over half a decade now, that they've been around for a while. But it's been cool to really see them establish and reestablish themselves to the point where they now are one of the few non-AAA entities to have their own E3 presser, and frankly, the most entertaining
Yeah.
E3 presser.
Yes, 1000%. I love that lady. She's just had such a cool narrative over the years.
Yeah, it's just none of the other companies are brave enough to write something as, pardon my language, batshit insane as the stuff that they write in those. And I don't think anyone other than Devolver or a company like that would be able to get away with it. But they know
Exactly.
what they are, they know their brand, and they know they can, and they lean into it.
Yeah, Devolver's the only I don't usually do those like react to like Nintendo or Sony or like whatever, but I did for Devolver, and I hope I can do it every single time. I love that they got Suda on there, and I was like, oh my god, what's Suda gonna do? And they just kind of yelled at him. Didn't have him do anything promotional for like them really, besides just being Suda
Yep.
51. Suda like getting yelled. I hope I said the right one. I'm really tired right now. It's Suda 51. I'm so sorry. But yeah, they just had him getting yelled at, and I was like, Devolver does not give an absolute crud. They are so powerful. They know
Yep.
what they're about. They're gonna just be them forever. And yeah, every time they come on, I'm just so excited to see the projects they're working on. They've had so many cool ones. Like, really good vibe for a company. But sorry, I'll go on about them all day.
No, you're good. Do you have any favorite games from them, whether it be something in the horror genre or otherwise?
I do. First of all, they're producing Cult of the Lamb, which I haven't played yet. I'm definitely gonna
Oh,
be
that
playing
is
it
one of
this
theirs. I
week.
didn't know that.
Yeah, they really did a great job, like marketing that too. I think they also did Fall Guys, so
Yeah,
they're
they
pretty
did do
big
Fall
now.
Guys. I know that they
Yeah.
definitely have a good tracker with that one. And for anyone who might be watching this after the fact, that this show is being broadcast 2-3 days after the release of Cult of the Lamb, that it has been the hot thing on Twitch for the past couple days, and it's
Yes.
one that I've not picked up myself, but just watching folks, this is probably one that I am going to pick up for myself and just play on my own time. Uh, it's such a fun, quirky little game of, starting your own cult, and that they
Yeah.
have some roguelike elements in there in terms of an amount of randomization. One of the really big hooks in it is that it has some solid Twitch integration, where
Oh.
if you are watching someone stream it, that whenever you get a new cultist, you can do a raffle of your followers, and that they can opt in and say, I would like
Wow.
the new cultist to be named after me. And if they win it, that right, in their browser window, that the person is able to then actually customize what the visuals of their cultist is. So they actually
wow.
have it baked into the UI, and that's really cool.
Oh, the BGM is drowning us out. Sorry about that. I think one of the BGMs is really loud, cause
Yeah,
it's an
I've
odd.
been shuffling a
Sorry
couple in and
about
out, so I'm turning that one down. Thank you
Sorry
for the
about
heads
that.
up.
But yeah, I actually didn't know that. I'm even more excited. I will put it on my I'll put it on my schedule for Tuesday. My number one upcoming game after this Sunday, since I take Monday off. I'm very excited. But yeah, I'm loving the concept of that. I love the look of it. I just when it comes to games where people go like, are you gonna play this, are you gonna play this, I tend to wait a tiny bit, because I kind of this is gonna sound really bad, but I kind of want people to play it a little first, because I know I'm gonna mess it up and I'll need help. It's really pathetic, but
Smart play there, though.
yeah.
Smart play of saying, okay, wait for others to get their own bearings. That way,
Yeah.
you don't usually want backseaters, but especially for a game like that you can get folks to explain either certain mechanics or be like, okay, what might be optimal play here.
Yeah, like I know that happened with the Mortuary's assistant, because I was able to get all the endings, but if I had tried it day one, I know I would have just screamed and died and gotten murdered over and over again. And I really, really love when you can have someone come in that absolutely loves the game and like gets super excited about it, like and kind of has like this idea of like how to play it. Like, you love when you have someone in chat that I know a lot of people are like, no backseating, but I know that I'm not the smartest. So I love when someone can come in and give you like a little bit of like, in not a derogatory way, just, everyone has their pros and their strengths. I'm not extremely observant. But if you get someone that's really into a game and like they want to share with you just a little bit and push you in a direction and see what you want to do with it, it's so awesome. Like, and I feel like that's gonna be a great game for it. And Devolver Digital in general just does so many fun games that you know that people are gonna get into them in like the week before you play them, and then you're gonna have like a lot of fun people coming in and telling you like, oh my gosh, this part's so cool. If you want to just move slightly to the left, maybe tiny bit to the left, something neat might happen. Like,
Yeah, just the
yeah.
gentle nudges. And
Yeah.
you mentioned Fall Guys, which
Oh
obviously did
gosh.
even better than Devolver could have imagined. That I remember seeing folks like the community manager just getting completely inundated, and
Yeah.
bless that guy, that they did a really good job with a unexpectedly high pressure situation. But
Yes.
just from the industry and financing side, that when you have a game that is so unexpectedly successful, that obviously, Devolver's not going to invest their time and money into something that they don't think is going to hit baseline success.
Yeah.
But you very rarely plan for, or write into your financial projections lightning in a bottle like you saw with Fall Guys. And
Yeah.
at the same time, when you get that type of unexpected windfall, it means that you then have a lot of company growth and are usually then able to take that and, well, one, I'm blanking on the name of the company that made Fall Guys, but then Devolver themselves, that they're both going to be able to benefit from that and then have more resources to invest in other things. And that,
Oh yeah.
there's probably a good handful of games that are now under the Devolver banner, and we'll never really know which of them from the accounting side, but they were probably able to take on a couple extra games that they might not have been able to if Fall Guys had only done as expected.
Yeah, you never know. We might not even have Cult of the Lamb, or it might be a much smaller project if they hadn't. And honestly, it's really great because even though, and also Extra Fuzzy, you're totally correct. Like, I love that, like, when they got big, they didn't just go like, we're big, make sure everything costs $1,000, like you see some games go for. They started getting really nice collaborations with like things you would never expect, like Sonic, Kizuna Eye, Nier, like crazy stuff like that. And like you love to see it where they actually like really pay attention to like what their fans would like and go like, whoa, that's really cool, let's actually contact these bigger studios now that we have the money and like the capacity to.
Yeah, or at this point,
Yeah.
they probably have the other studios contacting them. That
Yeah.
the two big IP crossover games of the past several years that we've seen are Fall Guys and Fortnite. And the two of them, it's just, up until now, it's really been Super Smash Brothers in terms of what you would call the greatest video game crossovers of all time. And
Yeah.
it's just an entirely different ball game with the two of them, because with Smash Brothers, that I would still say, in terms of like the refined games, that it's not just that you have the skins from different IPs, but that they've actually, developed these different fighters across however many franchises Smash Brothers has now, that they still hold the crown in that regard. But in terms of just broadness of IP, just and the span of pop culture as a whole, that yeah, it might only be in skins, but you still have to license those things. You still have to reach agreement from both parties, and
Yeah.
that Fall Guys and Fortnite have done so much and gone so far with all the different IP that they've worked with. And it's really cool to see, one, from a business side, because I'm just a giant nerd when it comes to business. I love seeing these
Oh,
types of things and wondering, okay, what are the meanings? Like, who was the person that pitched this first? Or, what's the process for that? But even if it is just skins or different cosmetics, that it still has an impact and still brings in people who are fans of those respective franchises. And by virtue of that, it helps grow the games and helps grow gaming as an industry and as a whole. And it's generally going to be a positive.
Yeah, it generally is. Like I've been very impressed like that like when you're younger, I feel like, yeah, exactly like you were saying, Smash Brothers, like it was kind of like a unique thing for a long time with like how they were like getting those licenses and putting them in there. And I'm amazed they did. Like the latest one is just incredible. But it is even more insane that now like giant movie studios and stuff are like kind of noticing Fortnite and going like, this is the way we're gonna market to kids. I'm also like really big into marketing and stuff like that. Like not really like for myself. I just think it's so crazy interesting that people can like, you know, kind of try to get an idea of like what they want to do to like reach a broader audience and stuff. And going back to Devolver Digital, something I really loved about them was like after they had that gigantic success, you didn't see them just going like, okay, what can we do that's so similar? Like that's what a lot of companies will do. They'll just be like, what can we do that's similar? What can we do like that'll be the next Fall Guys? Like you saw them picking up stuff like Weird West, which also is like a really, really great game. You saw them like continuing to go back to like these very like kind of I don't want to say like taking a chance on, because they're all very, very good games and stuff, but just very like
They're diversifying, that
yeah.
they aren't just iterating on one thing and saying, all right, what can we do that will be the next Fall Guys? That they're just letting Fall
Exactly.
Guys be the next Fall Guys and continuing to
Mhm.
support it, and that they've iterated and, had new games, new features and
Mhm.
everything on top of all the IP that they've pulled in over the
Yeah.
now almost 2 years that the game's been live, and that a couple months ago it went totally free to play. That it for a while was the $20 flat fee, and that you could buy additional crowns for cosmetics, but that you would
Yeah.
have the full game. That there was never any question about it being a normal game. It's not it was not the free to play model.
Yeah.
And even now that it is free to play, that it's not the conventional free to play model where you have to work for things. That basically they saw, all right, we are at the point where just for market saturation, that the game has been out for a year and a half at this point, and that it's better for the longevity of the game for us now to make this shift and say, okay, not even the $20 entry fee anymore, and that we think the folks who pay for the cosmetics and those different microtransactions are going to be more incentivized to stay and continue to pay in that regard if they continue to have more players to play against. That
Yeah.
the way that a lot of those games end up declining is just as player bases inevitably decline over time because people fall out of it or find new things to play. That that will eventually trickle upward to the payer base, because they're going to have, it's longer waiting for lobbies to load, or that just in general things begin to slow down. So their solution to that was, okay, we're going to make sure that we get a instantaneous influx of a lot of new players who might not have wanted to pay that $20, but now that it's just perpetually free to play, that it will give the game, again, this is some marketing and production jargon here, a long tail.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I think, also, like, it's true. Like, when you play a game and you really enjoy it, like, and you spend, like, 100 hours on it, like, and then you can get another friend to play, and, like, they log in, and, like, you're like, yeah, I just happen to have, like, this really cool, like, shiny, like, pantsuit. It's, like, nothing. And they're like, whoa, like, that's a great feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really fun feeling, and it also feels really nice because, like, if you enjoy a game, like, you're totally fine spending like $5 on like a skin or something. If you really enjoy a game and it kind of makes it where like you have to grind 100 hours or you have to spend like $80 trying to like, maybe get something, doesn't give you the best feeling. But I feel like Devolver and Fall Guys and they've all just come up with a very nice system that makes you feel like, yeah, I want to contribute towards this. I don't ever really feel like I'm being ripped off, or I don't ever feel like, there's something out of reach for me that people are taking advantage of in terms of like, how do you put it? I guess, gotcha. I'm not a huge
Yeah.
fan of gotcha, if I can be honest, but to the people that love it, no disrespect.
Yeah, no, one thing that I have been relatively open about on the show is that by day I do work in the gaming industry, and I have not said what I work for or what I work on, but I will
Mhm.
say that for a time, Gotcha paid my bills.
Oh
That
wow.
I have worked on a Gotcha game at a point in time, and it's very much the thing of that, it's a small amount of folks paying for the rest and really subsidizing. And don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
I think that it's a really cool model that it lets those folks who get into a game and who have that expendable income to just go nuts and be able to have whether it be cosmetics or weapons, to be able to have their fun and flex on others. But then it's still good for folks who might not have the income of at
Oh
least
yeah.
the concept, 15 years ago of being able to just play a game and not have to pay for it at all if you
I
don't want
know.
to.
Yeah.
That's unimaginable. And even when you get to, some of the games that are a bit more aggressive, shall we say, with their gotcha and monetization mechanics, that it's still, well, if you want to play and not pay anything at all, you can. It's just you might be a bit limited or at a disadvantage, but it's still, you're getting something for free.
Yeah.
And that's the push and pull of where developers need to go to find that balance that is good for them and good for players, because obviously if you're a bit too aggressive, that you're not going to have enough folks, and like I said, that's going to be the death of a game inevitably. But
Mhm.
it's a whole new way of design, and we still have obviously the ones where it's just $60 game AAA, and you pay for the game and you're done. But
Yeah.
it's offered a new frontier for designers, for players, and I certainly have my gripes with Gacha, but I'm glad it exists. I think
Yeah.
it's a really cool thing, and I'm always one who likes having more options out there.
Yeah, I mean, by the same token, like, and I also understand, like I was saying before, video games, I have a respect for the people that make them because there's just so much to do and they get so heavily criticized. Like, even if, Genshin Impact and games like those, they take quite a bit to, maybe get the characters you want. But I've also seen so many, like, even just like very young teenagers, like 12, 13-year-olds, be able to play it and get a really nice experience from it just because it is being subsidized by so many other people, just kind of like putting their money into it and like going like, okay, well now we have time to build this brand new area, and like we have the time to like make these new characters and get these new voice actors in order to like, get those characters voices and stuff. And that's definitely not a system they could just sustain for absolute free. Like,
Yeah.
and for the few games that can, like, for whatever reason, Your Turn to Die is completely free, and I don't know how. Like, I almost, like, kind of want to give them money. Like, there's nowhere in America you can just, like, really just send them money. So, I totally understand, like, there is also this push of just, like, there might be a really, really fun, interesting game that, the subsidization, I can't talk, subsidizing, stuff from other players is, yeah, a very interesting business model that can work in a lot of those situations.
Mm. Now, in terms of AAA games, I know that some of your favorites are ones from Kojima, and actually just last night you were playing Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater,
Oh,
which was super cool, and that, it's certainly known for having some more extended cutscenes, but you were having a good time going through the early parts of the game. Uh, you were initially going for a pacifist run, if memory serves, and then somebody dared to kill one of the snakes, and it was all over after that.
yeah. I think Metal Gear Solid 3 was also just such a Kojima's such like a genius when it comes to like designing games. Um, that like you could tell he was kind of also, apart from the snake thing where we decided that we had to murder that man for killing our snake. But like he's such a genius with games that like I think most people when they played Metal Gear Solid 3 as a child had this experience like, oh, come here, Pumpkin. There's Pumpkin. She's making an appearance. Hi, baby.
Yay, everybody, welcome
Yay!
to Vtuber Talk Pumpkin!
Hi, Pumpkin. You want to say hi? No, you want to smell? You just want to smell? You just
For
want to
those
smell, and
who
she wants
might
to
not be
reach out.
regulars of Grimmy's channel, one, go follow Grimmy, go do that. But two, Pumpkin is her cat and is a very important guest star, and just,
Aw.
Grimmy loves Pumpkin. That's one of the things that I learned very quickly, that pretty much anyone that goes to your channel is going to learn very quickly, that Pumpkin is family, and that, whatever Pumpkin needs, Pumpkin's gonna get. And if Pumpkin stops by and is in need of pets, Pumpkin's gonna get pets.
Oh yeah, she's I don't usually take too many breaks on stream, but if Pumpkin just meows at me like I want to go to a different room, it's like okay, I'll pick you up. We're going. Right, Pumpkin?
She's reminding you to take breaks.
Yeah. Yeah, she's reminding me to take breaks, and she just happens to wanna. She's, I don't know what happened to her before I adopted her, but she's very She's one of those little anxiety kitties. But she's very fluffy and cozy and like loves cuddles and like loves belly rub. She just like my roommate with her two cats moved out recently, and while Pumpkin wants the door open, she can only really take those steps outside if I pick her up and physically move her to the room she wants to be in. So it takes a lot of trial and error. But
Oh.
but she is happier. She's a really good kitty. She's I just love her more than anything in the world. I can't believe I found such a good little kitty, and I actually got her like when I was not to get it's not a negative situation at all, but since I was kind of going through some stuff, and one of my parents was having some pretty intense mental health issues, I ended up having to move into the back of an office, and I saw her on like a what's it called, one of those like we have cats, come get one, come adopt one, we're one of those like shelters, and I was like, oh my god, she's perfect, I have to go get her right now, and snuck her into the office I was living in the back, and she's been a really good little buddy since. Like, I wouldn't recommend doing that, but if you guys are ever in a bad place and you feel like you can't really get things together, getting a cat is a really good idea. Like, you get a lot of motivation to take care of yourself and to kind of get out of the bad situations you're in order to help them feel a little better. So, just saying, get a cat, 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 get a cat. Okay, there you go.
Grimmi is here to say, get a cat.
Absolutely. Also, shout out to other people that absolutely love cats and horror games. I think Callie Calico is one, and she actually even like she finds cats or like fosters cats and takes care of them. So Callie Calico's great if you really like horror games and cats, as well as Alfina VT also really loves horror games and cats. Sorry for shouting
Is
them
that
out.
Callii?
Uh,
Callico?
Okay, let me find it really quick. Oh, my keyboard.
I'll
Okay,
give
let me
him-
find it on my laptop. I'm gonna make sure they deserve shoutouts for taking care of kitties, and they're both horror game players with like a lot of cat themes, so I wanted to get them out there in case anyone's looking for more of that. I greatly respect those two.
I myself am actually allergic to cats, so I cannot have, and I swear that cats know who is allergic to them. They can sense it because it just whenever I go to a friend's place and that they have cats, that the cats always cuddle up to me. And I love animals. That I grew up with poodles for a while, and then later a golden doodle. That I'm also allergic to dog dander, not to the degree that I am with cats, though. That I definitely cannot own a cat. But I myself am fine with them. It's just that my body does not like their dander. That's the problem.
No, I understand. You might be able to, and I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not just like, no, we're getting you a cat. But like, let me say, has a great model with kitties in it. Okay, there we go. I posted them both in the chat if anyone wants to go check them out. You might even want to as well. They're very nice people. But what was I gonna say? Pumpkin is actually hypoallergenic. She doesn't give people any allergies, even though she's like the fluffiest cat in the universe. If you're looking for one like that, you might be able to get a Russian blue or a Siberian. Pumpkin's kind of a mix of something, I don't exactly know, but definitely has those inner makeup. So my one roommate that's super allergic to cats can actually even be around her and pet her, and like sometimes she'll even want to go in their room and hang out with them, and they haven't had any issues with her, which is incredible. So that might be something to check out if you'd like one.
I've encountered hypoallergenic cats in the past, and it's not as bad.
Oh, you
but
got
I still
the
get
super cat allergy.
Yeah, and it's not like even that it's like deathly or anything, but it's just it's I'm highly sensitive in that, you know, my eyes are gonna water and I'm gonna sneeze and I won't die, but I'm gonna have a bad time.
No, I'm so sorry. That's yeah.
But-
No, I understand, and good on you for.
But that's
still,
why I'm glad that
loving
folks like
little
you
cats.
and Callie and Alfina are out there to take care of the cats and make sure that they have good homes, and that it's so wonderful that you and Pumpkin were really able to find each other, and that you know you're really able to be there for each other, and you know take what was not a great situation into what has obviously become a very nice and healthy and loving situation for both of you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just super, super great. And it's, I don't know if I believe in fate, but sometimes things just work out. And especially when it comes to stuff like adoption agencies, and you just, I know that for one of the poodles that my family had growing up, that my mother had a very similar moment with one of them
Oh
where
wow.
um, we had actually taken, we had a single miniature poodle at the time, and we had taken it to the groomer, and
Mhm.
that the groomer had come into possession of this other miniature poodle,
Oh
and
no.
that she asked the groomer, like, "Oh, whose dog is that?" And uh, so the story goes, the groomer picked up the dog, put it in my mother's arms, and just sort of, like said, "Oh, well, she doesn't really have an owner right now. We just actually got her recently."
Oh.
And that more or less my mother was sent home with the
Oh.
dog, and they were like, you can send her back, and that if it doesn't work out, but my mom says that she sort
Aw.
of knew as soon as uh,
Aw.
her name was Ginger. As soon as Ginger was in her arms, she was like, "Oh, it's all over. It's all
That's
over."
so sweet. Yeah. That's so sweet. Yeah. Like no, I 100% feel you. Like some of my friends when I got my little kitty pumpkin while I was in that situation were just like, "What are you doing? You can't do that. Oh my god." And then they came over and saw her and they were like, "Oh, never mind. She's a cat. She's
We
so
understand
soft."
now.
Good for you. Yeah, it's easy to just go like, "No, no, no, no." But once they're there with you, you're just like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." Like
Hmm.
100%. I'm so happy you and your mom found Ginger too. That's really sweet to hear.
Also,
Yeah.
Dark Jester Angel and Anna Moxley, thank you for the follows.
Hi, you guys. Hello.
Yeah, that it is unfortunate. Like I said, I'm sure cats can sense when someone's allergic to them, because that's just every time without fail they always cuddle up. It's like, "I want to pet you.
Oh
I would
yeah.
love to pet you, but I can't."
Yeah. No, that's the thing. Also, cats are like, if you're very calm and you don't reach out to them, a lot of the time they're like, "Oh, you're very calm. Let's see what you're about." So they're
Oh,
probably
that would
just
make
like,
sense. Because, like I
yeah,
said, I'm totally fine with them. I'm not, afraid of them. I'm not gonna back away or anything.
yeah,
So when they approach me, that, like I said, I'm not going to reach down and pet them, but at the same time,
yeah,
I'm not gonna jump around because I know that's gonna cause them to be upset or stressed, and I don't want to do that
yeah.
either.
Yeah, no, sometimes I can't totally help myself. I'm just like, oh my god, a cat. Please, please, please come talk to me. Oh my god, a cat. And I kind of like, just kind of hang around them and try to inch closer to them, and they're just like, no. Like, so it sounds like you have the perfect posture for like attracting cats to come over to you. Like,
Yeah.
kind of ironic, but
Mm,
good for you. Cat
Well,
wrangler, cat
well,
wrangler.
one of the fortunate things of the past several years is that I have discovered that masks are good for, obviously, health purposes, but also that I can just wear a mask to a friend's house, and that my allergies aren't going to be as bad. And, you know, I'm still not going to get a cat because I don't want to be wearing a mask around my house all day long, but it's made those types of visits more viable, because there was a point for, like you mentioned, that there are hypoallergenic cats, and there's both for dogs and cats and just animals in general, that there's a spectrum of different breeds are going to shed more than others.
Oh yeah.
Um, and there were a couple friends that had cats that shed a ton, and I
Oh
just
yeah.
figured out over time, I can't really go to your place. So whenever we hang out, we're gonna have to either come to my place or whatever, because it doesn't matter if they've got a bit of dander on their clothes or
Yeah.
whatever. It's not that bad. But I wouldn't want to be in their house where the cat is living and that the dander's just in the air. But
Yeah.
nowadays, that I can wear a mask to those houses, and that I'm usually gonna be okay. So that's been certainly another positive from a negative there.
Oh yeah, that's incredible then. I'm happy that it helped you work around that. Like, Uh, honestly, I really like the mask thing. Like, um, I know not a ton of people are wearing them anymore, but it's still socially acceptable to wear them. And then you're just like, okay, don't have to put makeup on your lower part of your face. Don't have to like worry so much about like, okay, am I smiling enough at this person? Do I
Hmm.
seem
Hmm.
polite? Do I seem too polite? Do they think like I'm in love with them now? I kind of go through all of those insane thoughts every 10 seconds. So like,
Meanwhile, the allergy crowd is just like, how have we not known about this? Oh my gosh.
Heck yeah, they're perfect. We should reintroduce them to society everywhere. Everyone will get used to them. We won't have to worry about feeling as awkward or feeling as allergic. It's perfect. 10 out of 10.
Yes, indeed. Actually, let's see here. So we were talking initially actually about Kojima and Metal Gear Solid, and then
Oh,
Pumpkin just completely interrupted, but that's okay.
yeah.
And like I told you when we were talking the other day, I said I expect Pumpkin to come in and be a guest star, and that's okay because it's not the first time that a pet has guest starred on VTuber Talk, and it will not be the last. I'm sure of it.
Mhm.
But so Metal Gear Solid, you were playing Metal Gear Solid 3 just last night.
Oh,
Um,
such a good game.
do you have a favorite in the franchise, or are they all good for different reasons for you?
Oh man, I think I was saying about 3. Kojima was running out of control. It's very easy to accidentally slit someone's neck. I'll just go back to that really quickly. Maybe I should have had a little more context accidentally. Okay, actually, but anyway, it had a lot to do with like the pressure of button presses and stuff with that game. So, oof. But like I think my favorite was, first of all, not to get too into Kojima's like ideologies with how he creates games and I guess the stuff he puts into them, because that could be like a 7-hour conversation in itself, and it usually is if people let me talk about it for very long. Um, but I feel like each of his games have had like a steady progression of just the concept of like this yourself, soldiers, propaganda, your relation to the world and your reality, how much you know is true, how much you know isn't true, stuff like that. And I think the one that really like got to me when I was younger, and I definitely played it when I was just young enough to like go like, okay, this will be my entire life for a few weeks if you had games like that, where like you were just like kind of like in that right state where it was either summer, um, or you were just like 8 years old or something. Not that I was 8 years old. I'm trying really hard not to say my age or date my age with any of this stuff, but um, like Metal Gear Solid 2, I played when I was like, I guess, relatively young, and I didn't realize any of it was weird. So at the time, I was just like, oh yeah, okay, like yeah, propaganda I guess controls most of society, and we never know what's 100% real or what's marketing or what's related to ourself in a way that like makes sense, and we're just gonna have to figure that out. That makes sense. And I was like, okay, that's perfectly understandable. And then like 10 years later, I was like, wait, that's really weird. Like, why did I accept that at face value? And I started replaying it, and I was like, whoa, this is really neat. Like, it talks so much about how like just when we have like it kind of relates to even today, like just there's so much to do in that story with how we see the world based on like our social media and like the memes around us, and how we kind of lost that sense of like learning things from like just our friends going out and talking to them. Like now everything can be traced back to like 17 like different opinions and articles on like Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. And then even if we go through all of those, they might not even be 100% accurate just because everything's getting filtered through so many people's like experiences and concepts and like stuff like that. Like Metal Gear Solid 2 is my absolute favorite for that reason. And
And
yeah.
back then, social media was, well, I don't know if that was early days of social media, or if that would just be
Yeah.
properly prior to social media, certainly before social media as we know it today. And that, a lot of the propaganda and different things
Yeah.
explored there are through more traditional news outlets and whatnot, but
Yeah.
that it still remains a consistent concept that even if
Yeah.
technology and information dissemination has changed, that you still have those types of things today, and that, like you said, that's that's some pretty heavy stuff to put into a video game, and
Yeah.
that I feel like over time, companies and creators have gotten better, one, about being able to weave those types of themes and stories into gaming. That, part
Hmm.
of the issue that you had in the early days was that if you weren't just doing a text simulator game, that
Yeah.
there simply wouldn't be enough memory in the game to do a lot of stuff. That's why you don't have a ton of dialogue outside of text-based games for the early generations, because you only have so much to work with. But then
Yeah.
that also created trends in, we talk about sort of established norms and precedents for things like Mass Effect or Dragon Age, and
Hmm.
that, different games just well, got a bit more into gameplay than into narrative and the role of narrative alongside gameplay. But that over time, that it's not anything new, certainly. But I feel like it really took until the basically that N64 PS1 era for us to really start getting some heavily narrative driven games that also had really developed gameplay alongside those narratives.
Yeah, it's really true. And also, what you were saying was 100%. And what like I really started to like about it was like we were saying way before, like especially with Metal Gear Solid and Kojima, they were starting to do things that like you literally couldn't do with like movies or television, where it even like kind of takes the player and puts them in the story in a very meta way. Like, I'm gonna spoil a little bit about Metal Gear Solid 2 if it's okay. Sorry, everyone.
It's been out for how many years now? Like I said, statute of limitations, I think we're fine.
Yeah, it's been out for a very long time. But with Metal Gear Solid 2, you play through that game and then it's kind of awkward because it's at a point where Raiden's naked because Kojima is just kind of a, I don't know what's up with him, but he's just
He likes
managed to
the
convince-
human form.
Yeah, he managed to convince the entire studio to put a fella in there running around naked. Good for him. You go do Kojima. But that's not the important part. It's during that part like the Raiden's codec and like the AI that was talking to him throughout the entire game is starting to get really frazzled and messed up. And how it's illustrated to you, the player playing as him, is that the AI starts calling you over and over again, saying the most insane stuff, saying some codec conversations backwards, saying really like weird stuff, just like, you know, it's almost like a conversation you'd have with someone when you go out to lunch just to hang out, and like they're talking about how their ex-wife is leaving them, but it's the commander that's been talking to you the whole game, and like it's just like, and then just gibberish, different languages, like and it's just all freaking out, and sometimes you'll even get game over screens but still be playing in the corner. Like, it starts to really seem like you, the player, are having like this really weird connected mental breakdown with Raiden himself. And when I was younger, I was terrified. Like, that was like the scariest moment of my life. Like, they started telling you like, oh my gosh, you've been playing for a long time, haven't you, Raiden? No, I'm not talking about Raiden, actually. It's you, the player. And when you're young, you're just like, oh god, they see me. Like, that was one of the coolest things I had seen, though. And, I think a lot of games have really gotten into that concept of, like, doing storytelling either in a very meta way, where it connects to you, the player, or doing storytelling in a very, like, kind of only a way they could do without, like, if you played Nier Automata, like, I still haven't even finished it, but just playing through the game once, and then another small spoiler, you play through the game again as a different character and get different, like, different experiences, a different perspective, and then you start to see different things from their perspective because they're hacking the robots you encounter, and, like, you kind of see their backgrounds, like, when you just kind of, like, murdered them the first time. Like, you get so many different concepts when it comes to narrative through story in like games and stuff, and that's something that's come such a long way, like to the point where I don't even really know what Death Stranding's about fully, but I can tell.
I don't know if anyone knows what that game is about fully.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's just, he really went for it. There's something there that's supposed to be integral about how we interact with society, and the game's being able to do that now. It's so cool. It's just so neat. It really teaches you a lot about yourself and how you interact with the world. And sorry, I know I'm going on a huge tangent.
No. Like I said, I like getting folks talking about things that they're passionate about, and it's clear this is a big thing for you. And you're right that Kojima as an auteur, as a creator, is I won't say that he's entirely the only person in the industry, but he's one of a very, very small handful of people in the industry that does the types of narratives that he does. And it's been a thing from very early in his career that you can definitely tell that even if most of the players can't figure out what's going on, that Kojima knows what he wants to do and he does that thing, and that's part of why, Rewind the Clock Squad would be almost 8-ish
Yeah.
years now, I think, that he had
Yeah.
the perhaps infamous split from Konami, which was the company that he worked with to publish all of the Metal Gear Solid games.
Yeah.
And that's what led to Death Stranding and what is now known as Kojima Productions, because he was just unrelenting in that he has his vision, and that, sort of bring it back to what we were talking about with the BioWare and Dragon Age and things like that, where as the franchise got bigger and bigger and bigger, that he saw that the artistic vision that he had for his games was being diminished because
Yeah.
because the teams were getting bigger, the demands were getting bigger, and basically he just walked away. He said, uh, he, "There's you know rumblings of that it was very dramatic, and I'm sure that there was
Yeah.
stuff going on behind the scenes, but essentially what it boiled down to was he left Konami. That whether it was them removing him or him stepping down, or the mutual parting of the ways, that Kojima left Konami, made his own team. But at that point in time, since he was so renowned for Metal Gear Solid and these other games, that he was able to very quickly assemble a team of like-minded people and create Kojima Productions, which has done Death Stranding and is now in the middle of Death Stranding 2, and that whatever it is that he wants to say and do with that game, that it's clear that he's doing it, even if we can't fully understand it.
Yeah. It's 100% true. He I think he's one of the number one, like, because games can all be very different. Like uh my type of game is definitely the Kojima type of game where he's very, very good at linking mechanics and like the world and the way you play into the story itself of that game. Like, I think and there are a lot of really amazing developers that can do that. And I know Kojima just kind of gets like a very his name is very out there, so he gets a
Yeah,
lot of praise and a lot of compared to like most
he has
people. But
he has certainly become an icon in his own right. That,
yeah,
like I said, that he's not the only one, but I would argue he's certainly one of the most recognized.
yeah, for good reason, for sure. But he also he finds a great team, it seems like, as well. Like, supposedly when he was talking about his interviews and stuff after leaving Konami, after he left, he was like, what do I do? And his office was like a small room with one other person that was making calls with him, going like, hey, uh I'm making a new game studio. Do you wanna come by and maybe interview or do something? And like, he built it up just from that after he kind of went down. And I can only imagine how many people would just be like, dang, I lost my shot, I give up. But um he really went for it, and I'm just so happy that he did. Like, the way he blends like mechanics and storytelling for his games, it's really incredible. And Yoko Taro as well, like I was saying. And also kind of hard to quantify because it's an MMO, but Final Fantasy 14 and the lead writer with that, Ishikawa, she's incredible with that. I didn't think you could even do that for an MMO.
Yeah, it's
Like,
been incredible to
yeah.
see that. I don't play FF14 myself, but I know many people who do, and it was the type of thing that, when Endwalker came out, that there was for anyone who remembers, it was in January, actually, late December, early January, that Endwalker came out for Final Fantasy 14, and it was so successful and had so much traffic that the queue times were notoriously long, thousands of people waiting, and that they shut down their famous, or perhaps infamous, free trial. The try Final Fantasy 14 free up to level 60, download and try today. That they literally said, please do not try Final Fantasy 14 critically acclaimed MMORPG, because we have too many people waiting in the queue.
Yeah, it's honestly though, it's so worth it. I was one of those people that was like losing sleep, and it was kind of insane even if you were playing it, because they had to do a system where you'd get kicked off after 20 minutes, I think, or something. It might have even been shorter. I think it was 15 or 20
that
minutes.
short. Wow.
Yeah. If you were playing the game and your character didn't move for X amount of time, you would get kicked off, and then there was like the 5 or 6 hours maybe you'd get in kind of wait times.
Mm-hmm.
So me, and all the people I played with, I don't play quite as much anymore just because MMOs and not having time and stuff. But I was like doing this thing where I take like 15-minute naps or like take a 15-minute like thing where I'd go and
Have a
get
break.
food.
Did you
Yeah,
have a workaround to make sure you didn't get booted off? Did you like lean
no.
something?
I'd sometimes ask my roommates, like while I was at work or driving home from something, I'd just be like, "Can you log into my account? Can you log into my account so I'm in the queue so when I get back I might be able to play?" And
Mm,
they, or sometimes like I guess maybe like, or maybe like I'm not home either. But it was that bad. But the story was so good. I don't think I'd be doing VTubing if I hadn't played it. I don't think I'd be doing much of anything. It was crazy good if you had a lot of issues with existential depression, anxiety, and kind of I don't know how to put it other than I guess if you feel kind of bad living in a world where so many bad things happen to people and it's kind of nebulous what you can or can't do for others. Like it was a really crazy good story. Just Ishikawa was a very good writer. I'll just say that much. I don't want to spoil it or
yeah,
make
that one
people
is recent enough that I'll definitely say, unlike Metal Gear
yeah,
Solid 2 and Danganronpa, that's recent enough that
yeah.
I'll say, yeah, we'll want to sidestep some
Oh yeah,
spoilers there because people
100%.
would still be playing that. But
Yeah,
yeah, and I know
but
the narrative really hit a lot of people and that it's been very successful. And you talk
yeah,
about the gaming industry at large and trends. That was basically the moment that I sort of stood back and said, "Wow, World of
yeah.
Warcraft isn't the biggest MMO anymore."
Yeah, I'm amazed too. And also, the way that they talk about World of Warcraft there, like, Yoshi P, the director of it. Also incredible that he even gave Ishikawa like so much run of the story and the game itself, considering she had only really worked on like I think a Monster Hunter DS spin-off title, and to go from that to like the main narrative director of the entire like MMO, like one of the biggest games on the planet.
Well, I
He's an
have to guess
incredible
that
director.
it wasn't always the biggest game. It wasn't always the World of
Mm-mm.
Warcraft killer. That at first it was more of an experiment, and the
Yeah,
fact that it wasn't on a PlayStation console made
yeah,
it so it was sort of the redhead stepchild of the Final Fantasy XIV franchise. So, if anything, my guess is that they gave it to them because at the time, at least for initial development and expectations, that it was actually not seen as big, that it was all right, this is gonna be this sort of side thing that we're doing. It's not gonna be our bread and butter because up until that point, Final Fantasy had really just been known that, this is one of the big franchises on PlayStation, on Sony, and not something that is known for being on PC, for being an MMO.
yeah,
And my my best guess, as someone who, like I said, doesn't play the game, so is just sort of gonna have to work with really no preconceived notions on it, that my guess is that they looked at it and said, well, this is offbeat enough that it's going to be a low risk thing for us, so you can do that. And just when it started to get big, when it started to succeed, they're like, well, you've done well so far and it's performed well so far, so we don't see the need to take it away from you. And it was just, another success. Well, you've done real well so far, so you can
yeah.
keep at it until you mess up. And they just kept going.
Well, I'd highly, since you said that you work in the game industry and stuff and you're out about that but not about any of your other stuff, I would highly recommend taking a look at like the history of that game, even if you don't play it.
Yeah, no,
um
that would be an interesting read. Or just,
yeah,
there are certain games or companies that I would love to see documentaries of. I'd love to see a
oh, you
documentary
should.
about FF14.
You really should. It actually almost bankrupted the company. Square Enix was almost dead. What happened was they had a team develop 1.0 and it completely flopped. It was a game that was very interesting, but it was kind of just too, uh, I guess, too esoteric and too hard to figure out for people, and it
That's
didn't
right.
really
I
have.
have heard
Yeah,
about that. Yeah, and that they had
yeah.
basically the I don't remember what the name of the event
Yeah.
was or what it's become known as, but this is bringing back memories that one of my previous guests, who's really into FF14, she goes by Party Demoness Minerva or Min. I'm
Oh,
not sure.
she's so cool. Sorry, I didn't mean. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. That she is a huge FF14 buff. And as you're going through this, I'm now having these memories come back that basically, like you said, the game flopped, that it didn't
Yeah.
do well, but that for whatever reason, they had just enough left in the tank and that they said, okay, we think this can be salvaged. We're
Yeah.
going to essentially hit the hard reset button where it's going to, you think the Thanos blink, but not half. It's just everything is gone, new world created. Everyone essentially is restarting, and that it's going to be literally a new world.
Yep.
And that for whatever reason, that there are very few companies that would even take that course of action. Usually you're going to see a company just sunset the game, that they say, well, this didn't do what it was supposed to, so we're
Yep.
gonna cut our losses and move on to the next project. But
Yeah.
that for whatever reason, with what resources they had left, that instead of sunsetting and trying to do one other game, that they said, we still think this can work and it needs to be changed, and it needs to be changed drastically.
Oh
So
yeah.
we're just going to do this hard reset, which is, you talk about rarities in the gaming industry. It's rare that a company will do anything of this sort, much less
Yeah.
something that is just, so frankly radical of we're going to hit the hard reset button and change all these systems, the game itself, and that
Yeah.
it worked and that it paid off and that
Yeah.
they obviously were on to something, that they knew what they were doing, because it wasn't an overnight thing, certainly. But once they had that shift, that they saw those numbers increase and that players started to enjoy the game more, and that it now has gone to be the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV, which you can download for free and play up to level 60 with unlimited playtime and all that
Yeah.
jazz.
It's yeah, I'll only get into it a little bit, but essentially the reason they did that was because like they put so much investment into it. Like I'm sure you know an MMO is like one of the
Oh, yeah.
most expensive, yeah, most expensive things you can possibly put money into for a video game. And they were just like, well, we're just done if we can't make this work. So Yoshi P was initially this director that had been known for like doing a few things, and he had worked in different parts of the company, from what I remember. So they were like, okay, I guess you can try it, like try to fix it, I guess. So he took the whole game down. He made a narrative reason of like, this big like gigantic thing coming down and like destroying a ton of people and like them barely being able to contain it. He put it into the main story of 1.0. So he even wrapped up that story. He was working on that as he worked on the new one. And then when he launched the new one, he had played all these other games, including World of Warcraft. He even like has gone on publicly to say that World of Warcraft was great. They got a lot of inspiration from it and they really respect it. Which is, is not something you see very often with competitor like, businesses like that, especially when they're the two biggest ones. But he went and said that, and he completely restructured it, and it went crazy well to the point where the servers even crashed the first time, or not crashed, but like they just could not get enough. They couldn't have enough people on playing, and that was after he begged for more and more server space from them, and them going like, I don't think it's gonna be that big. You gotta calm down. Like, he has been kind of just pushing the boundary with that the entire time, and it went from to the point where it was completely bankrupting their company. They were pretty much just gonna die out and have to sell and become a much
Bankrolling
smaller
their company.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, we probably owe Final Fantasy VII Remake to it. We owe, like, all of their little, probably The World Ends With You. Like, they can just take probably what they make in a month from Final Fantasy XIV and make it into an entire, like, huge game. They just make money hand over fist with it, so...
Yeah, that's sort of the
Yeah.
parallel to what we were saying earlier about Fall Guys and how
Yeah.
it probably really galvanized Devolver Digital
Yeah.
far and beyond what they expected. That seems to have been
Yeah.
the case, and you are right that the development of an MMO is going to be inherently more intensive than pretty
Oh,
much
yeah.
any other type of game, and you might be right of that. That's why they decided to take one last chance on it, because if they could say, all right, we're going to change a lot of mechanics and we're going to change a lot of
Yeah.
essentially data about the game,
Mhm.
but one of the biggest hurdles for MMO development is going to be the infrastructure, the back end,
Yeah.
the networking, the fact that you're able to make it so that all of these different computers are able to communicate consistently. And that was never the problem, that it was never a technological issue with Final Fantasy XIV. So knowing that they had this already propped up infrastructure and that obviously so much had been invested there, that they were like, all right, for how much we put up here and for how much it would cost someone to make this again from scratch, it's
Yeah.
worth what at that point is probably, a fraction of the investment to try once more. And that actually does track of a very logical reasoning why they would take this particular course of action. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. And it's just, like I said, it's so cool to see it pay off, and not just that it paid off and that it was successful, but that it was wildly successful.
Yeah, exactly. It was also when you look at like I said, it's really worth it to go and look at how the game was like kind of redone if you're in the industry, because like I said, Ishikawa was like a pretty small writer, and then Yoshi P was just like, you seem like you know what you're doing, right? More. And like he did that with so many different people on that game, like where he kind of was just able to find like a team that was able to support him with that. And the way he managed it, like when he talks about it, sounds insane. Like when he got in there, he was just, first of all, he went around to everyone in the department, everyone creating the game, everyone that was working on it and continued to work on it, and said like, okay, how long does it take you to make stuff? Like, how long would it take you to make this like asset, or like adjust this asset, or like make this into something that can be used here, here, like do this. And they would give him a number of hours, and he'd be like, okay, and what's the amount of like hours it would take you to the point where like you'd get it done, but like 100 things would go wrong, and like you'd have trouble even accepting pay, like you'd feel so bad that it took so long. And
that's the sign of a good producer. One of taking the time and effort to go around to all the teams, and even if you can't speak to every individual, at least going to every team lead and say, hey, pull everyone on your team and then bring the answers back to me, even if I can't go desk to desk to desk. And to get that information and to get that individualized input and say, all right, what's this going to take? But if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. And it speaks a lot of volumes about someone just in a business leadership position to have the wherewithal and patience to go through that process, because that's going to be talking to a lot of people that, we aren't sure exactly how many it is, but when you're working on an MMO, inevitably, this isn't going to be one of those small games like Madfather or Ib. You're going to be working with presumably triple digits.
Exactly. Like, he has an incredible amount of, and I'm sure it's even bigger now, but he was able to manage them. And also, the funniest part is, like, he said that, like, despite people going like, oh, I'll have it done in like 5 hours or whatever, and then like they'd give him like if I'd feel horrible taking like
what's the worst case
hours.
Scenario, that assume the worst and plan for things to go wrong.
He said it was always the maximum amount of time, which I feel like we want to show our best to like the people we're working with, so we tend to go like, oh yeah, 20 minutes, like but then it turns out to be like, oh yeah, 4 days. But that's also so smart that he was even able to like do that. And then like I know that we have a real like everyone in like a lot of Western companies is really trying to figure out like, how do we get more ladies into like positions with these games, like in a higher up area, like what can we do? But for 14, like it happened very naturally. Like he has like a lot of like just female talent like in different areas of his games. Like I was saying, Ishikawa, like being the main writer, she kind of just naturally progressed up to being the main writer over time, just by showing she was doing such interesting cool stuff with like she wrote a really interesting I think it was like a job quest, where like you go through a story for like the job you're playing. She wrote an amazing one with that, and they were like, whoa, this is great, I guess do you want to write this stuff? Like, do you want to write this whole like kind of quest series where it's like a trial where you hang out with these characters and then like they talk and like they kind of like get through like an entire like little story together, but instead it's more like 28 hours instead of like just a few. And she wrote that, and she did amazing, and it had a great response. So they eventually just kept giving her more and more work until she became the lead writer on Shadowbringers and Endwalker, and that's that's what got them so many accolades and like so much like good feedback and press that, you know, it was praised for its story. And to this day, I think they're some of the best Final Fantasy stories. Like, but that's all because of like his management skills and going like, okay, this person is doing really well. Which also doesn't really happen in Japanese companies. Usually you promote who's, at least from what I've heard, you promote who's had the most time, you know, working on the type of stuff.
That
Like,
raw seniority, at least historically speaking, in Japanese companies does just culturally end up carrying a lot of weight. So you're right that it's really cool to see that they've been able to just sort of buck those trends. And I'm sure that, you know, not everything is sunshine and roses. It never is. But, you know, at the same time, these stories get out and, you know, these are the positive ones. And then on the other hand, well, let's say that a non-zero part of the reason that World of Warcraft declined as Final Fantasy XIV was ascending was because of some corporate things at Blizzard Activision that have not been super stellar. And we'll leave it at that.
We'll just say that it seems like they both took a diverging path, and
and that you want to be the Square Enix in this particular scenario.
It sounds like Square Enix is doing fine right now, and it sounds like other companies are having some trouble sometimes, and we can, no worries, I feel you.
Yeah, that's an entirely different documentary.
Yeah. Oh gosh. No criticism towards any company, though. I know that there's a lot of good people that work at places that
But so hopping back with Kojima, Metal Gear Solid, and like we mentioned, going on to what is now Kojima Productions, that one of the sort of, I suppose, central themes of game design that you enjoy is just games where the gameplay is impacted by the narrative, and that you're generally going to see this in RPGs because, you know, as the name suggests, RPGs, role-playing games, that you are going to be able to have your own path, have your own story, but it's not always just, all right, there are these diverging paths and you can choose what class to play, but you know, when it really comes to the narrative, that your choices are able to actually make a difference. And that can be everything from multiple endings in a visual novel to just some of the more nuanced and granular things where you have these games that, you know, just by the numbers might have hundreds of different endings, because instead of it being a simple ending, that there's all these different factors, that it could be just, you know, these different characters, that Mass Effect really had its claim to fame because it was one of the most fleshed out systems like this that had existed, and that at least if memory serves, it was the first one to carry over decisions from game to game, that if there was this character that you had met and that had died in battle in your first Mass Effect game, that when you start up Mass Effect 2, that this character is still there and that you have that continuity. Are there any games in that vein that really stick out to you as ones that were either impactful for you or that you just hold up as, this is one of my favorite types of games that really works with their narrative particularly well?
Well, let me think here, because I definitely like narrative games. Like, I feel like out of everything, I certainly have a lot of games I love where, like, they have absolutely nothing to do with story. Like, you know, there's some you can just play with friends and stuff, but I think when it comes to that kind of narrative stuff, oh gosh, I did like Mass Effect, but I'm not huge on, like, the setting of, like, sci-fi shooters. I think they're really fun, but trying to think if there was one game that really impacted me and made me go like, holy crud, this is incredible, people can do all kinds of interesting stuff. Like, I think, you know, it might have, even though it's like a smaller one, and after talking about all that AAA stuff, I know it's quite silly, like, but Eve was probably like the first game I played as maybe even Paper Mario too. I really like that one, but Eve was like the first game I played where I sat down, I played it completely through, and like I was just kind of like, wow, that was really crazy. Like, it seemed kind of small and everything, but they really had an entire world they figured out. They really had like a sense of atmosphere they figured out. They really had a story they wanted to tell with the characters. And then you could play it like 3, 4, 5 times and get different endings based on just little interactions and little things. And I just thought that was so interesting. Like, there's there was definitely like this moment of just like it kind of doesn't matter like what the game looks like. It kind of just matters like what the person wants to do with like the specific narrative they set out to like make. And I was just like, that's so interesting. You can make this even if like you're a small little person, even if like you have like hundreds of thousands of dollars at your disposal. Like there's also like really interesting indie games like Stardew Valley, just like one dude that just kind of went for it for years and years and years. Um, and I've just been so satisfied and so interested when people really take the time to like make a world feel really real. It doesn't matter like the scale of it. It just matters that like they really put in the effort to make everything kind of work. And again, like Mass Effect, like you were saying, totally legit in that respect. Like you can play that game, have different conversations with people, have different party members, have different like all kinds of stuff. Same with Dragon Age. You can like a very large world that like can kind of be occupied by different characters changing, different characters being brought places. Like you might even discover like a character that appears in a sequel in Dragon Age just because you have one fellow with you that would remember her, like, and then like years later you see her and you're like, holy crap, that's cool. Like, I think when it comes to stuff like that, it's kind of just more like, I don't know if there's any specific one. It's more just finding a game where the world feels so complete that like you can almost imagine like just what it would be like to live in it. And that's become so much more I think prevalent. Like I feel like video games really make an effort now to even like AAA ones. I also know that like a lot of AAA games like kind of, I don't want to say suffer, but like I feel like that's one of the first things that kind of gets pulled a lot of the time, because like if they have a little storyline or mission that adds a lot of weight to like how the world feels, but otherwise doesn't really do much, and they have to choose between that and making sure the game can function and get out the door, like it's no question they have to like choose. If they have like 800,000 plates spinning and they have to drop those 3 plates to make sure the rest of them like keep going, more than understandable. But I think they've even been doing a really good job of it, like where it starts to become like a thing everyone can kind of like I don't know how to put it other than I think I can give a good example though. And I'm not criticizing this game harshly. I think it was very good and interesting, and I think people put a lot of time and effort into it. But I think the one where I saw it like the most, where I wasn't like extremely excited about it, was I loved Last of Us 1, and it felt like very complete world, very interesting, very cool. And then with Last of Us 2, it kind of almost felt like a lot of the time the zombies weren't even there, like just because it was so focused on like the human element of it. Like it was making me like go like, come on, you guys should be thinking a little tiny bit more about this consistently and a little bit more afraid. Like, sorry for like the rambling run-on one, but
no, this is a talk show. Please talk.
Thank you. But I'm trying to get better about saying sorry, but like it's kind of just like, I kind of feel like with so many games now, you can almost feel like how everything's crafted around like this one major threat or like this one thing that everyone's had to live around, and all of their personalities are based around it, all of their concepts are based around it, all of their character designs are based around it, and I love it. Like that's a 10 out of 10. So that's pretty much just it. Like I can think of 100 like games where that's the case, like 14 even from the beginning. Like if you go to a different region, everyone's dressed differently. People even talk differently. They have different systems of government. People act differently based on that. Like if you play something like maybe not Fall Guys though, that I'd be amazed if there were that. There might be some lore that I don't know about based on the Fall Guys.
If memory serves, the community manager wrote a little bit of lore that was basically just published on the Twitter account of saying that the beans are aware and live for competition, that their reason for living, that their instinct is to compete in these games, and that it's they're called shows because they are aware that they are being watched and that it's mildly dystopic, actually. That they have not actually leaned into it into any high regard, but basically they have allowed the social media manager at the time to post this very loose amount of lore, if memory serves, and that but
Wow.
but to your point, yes, that a game like Fall Guys, generally speaking, is not going to have a very fleshed out, established world, that they are not really spending their development cycles on narrative and world building. And that,
No.
fortunately, that for most games that are trying to have a story, that Fall Guys is not trying to have a story, that it is
Yeah.
a game for game's sake, and that's totally fine, but that it's certainly more common nowadays that games that have any semblance of story are going to have much deeper world building than it used to be. That you look at
Yeah.
Pokemon, for example, that the early games were very bare bones in terms of their world building, and that you would have a couple throwaway lines perhaps from NPCs, but just based on graphic limitations at the time, that you're not
Mhm.
able to convey a ton of things through environmental cues like you are nowadays. That nowadays you
Yeah.
can show these different cities in different states or with different influences, different cultures. You're able to show weather patterns, or just, you know, different ruins, or places in nature.
Yeah.
But rewind the clock to something like the NES, SNES original Game Boy, where you're going to be very limited on sprites. So buildings are going to look pretty much the same from town to town, and that trees are going to look the same regardless of where you are, and that just because of the graphical and technological expansion, that you're now able to tell these stories and do this type of world building and narrative building,
Yeah.
not only through your characters and actual dialogue, but all this stuff of you're talking about feeling like you can live in a world. It's certainly a lot easier when you're able to actually show and convey a world in greater detail than just, the recycled sprites.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think it's become something where like a lot of games and yeah, I do need to brush up on my Fall Guy lore, I guess. Like everything has it these days. Like it's it is very interesting like especially like with Final Fantasy 14. I know I'm talking about it a lot, but they even like put out books where like you can see like specific like lore about like different areas or ruins or dungeons, or if you find NPCs around there, they'll be like, yeah, these things are like weird. I don't know why these scorpions are here. But then if you like go through more, you'll find out like, oh, they're here because they were fleshed out of this area and they kind of went underground here, and there was this tunnel system that kind of led over to here. Like it's very very interesting that like it seems like these days there's such a push to like make the world and mechanics and the story kind of all tie together, that if it doesn't, it kind of almost stands out a lot. Like when I was playing Last of Us 2, I remember it kind of standing out that like the zombies in the first game were such a big threat, and then in the second game they kind of like didn't really because like I love writing and I've written a lot. Like I love whenever, and I feel like it's very important when like the world dictates how the character acts, and the character's actions are dictated by the world and their experiences growing up in that world. It's just such a cool treat to see it happen in a video game though, because you can actually physically explore it. Like you can get an idea of like what happened in that specific area, and like with Eve, it's only a few hours long. It's a free game, or I think it's a few bucks on Steam if you want to get the remake version, and you can definitely go in and actually see like how the area was like kind of created. Like I don't want to spoil too much of it, especially since it's so short and people could foreseeably go and check it out. But you can see why the things in the events that happened there occurred, why specifically certain people were drawn into it, and like there's just so much to learn if you sit back and kind of think about like the subtlety of like what goes on in a game. I also love that. I should say that actually. I love when you can play a game once and then play it back to back and figure out so much more about it. Like I feel like
Yeah.
yeah,
Anything that you can go back to on subsequent, whether it's a movie
yeah,
or a book, of just being able to go back the second time, the third time, and pick up
Yeah.
on details and be like, oh, that was that character talking about this thing which I didn't learn about until the end game, but this was alluding to that, or this explains that decision that they made,
Yeah.
or why, you know, this thing in the environment was just ever so slightly off, and being able to fill in those blanks and realize, oh, the people who were doing this world building knew
Yeah.
what they were doing from the start and had all these little details in place, and that it definitely is appreciated when you can go back and see that effort after the fact.
Yeah, like that's again, unfortunately 14 Final Fantasy 14 is like, oh gosh, I don't even want to think about it. Probably 300 to 400 hours long at this point. But it's also one of those games. I actually even played it twice, like not up until current, like I'm still working through it, but it's one of those games where if you go back to the very, 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 very start of it, you can realize things that are referenced at the very, 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 very end of it. Very, very well and very well thought out in terms of its story and its world building. And you won't even really know what's happening with that element until like 200 hours in. But again, so long and an MMO, so not for everyone. And I wouldn't highly recommend that for everyone, but it's just it's such a great experience if you are into like world building and it's great. Video games are amazing. They be amazing. I
And and I know you appreciate that type of world building in all your media, really. That you mentioned, you know, everything from Maniac on Netflix apparently has been one that you've really enjoyed lately. You also had
Yeah.
a couple of different anime that, some more in the just good instances of horror, like Junji Ito, but that there are others in that I know world building at large is something you very much appreciate in writing. And like you said, that you yourself are a writer, and
Yeah.
that naturally, when you are a creator of any type of content, that you are going to end up honing an eye for that type of content, especially if it is something that you try to specialize in yourself. So I'd imagine that just from your own writing and world building in whatever works that you do, that it's become something that you're more sensitive to as a viewer, or just, you know, consumer of any type of media in general.
Yeah. I definitely do. Like I love I love light novels even though they're not the most how do I put it? I love isekai light novels. Uh and I know that they're a little bit of like a genre jump specifically cuz usually they're about like getting 12 elf wives and like you know, that's maybe not the most narratively not all of them. There's a lot of really interesting one, but narratively getting 12 elf wives maybe isn't the most emotionally stirring for everyone, but some people really like it. But the biggest thing I've noticed about those is like they're gigantic info dumps where they just tell you about the world they're in and they just kind of go crazy with it. It's really fun to see that kind of stuff reflected in like all kinds of things where like um you can tell the person writing it really has a really interesting idea of like the world they've set up and I just love that kind of thing. As for Maniac on Netflix, that's it's kind of like a dark topic, but I won't spoil too much about it. It kind of takes place in. It's very easy not to notice, but it takes place in a separate reality where, I guess, emotional sciences were more popular than like just general computer technology and stuff. It's very easy to miss that part too. It's very in the background, and it follows the main characters, which are a man with schizophrenia that lives in like a very high class family, and a woman with I'm not sure what kind of I think it's I forgot which one it was. It was some sort of cluster B personality disorder. And they go into this program where I don't think they're even supposed to be in that, but it's ultimately to go through their dreams and try to process their traumas to see if they can not have them anymore. And a lot of really intense stuff goes wrong and like everything starts to meld together and they have to like kind of work through that situation and it gets really weird, but it's a great story and the visuals are so cool. If you've seen True Detective, it's by that guy, he's the director. um he does some amazing stuff with how it looks and it's just absolutely beautiful if you like that kind of like older computer aesthetic and like kind of mellow lights or Blade Runner. Like I'd highly recommend it. But if you go through it again, like a second time through, you'll realize that so much of the stuff they're seeing in their dreams is related to a lot of stuff related to like their conversations they had in real life, which is crazy and like a crazy concept. Like, I just love when you can get a little bit more out of like the world or the characters by just kind of going through it once or twice more. It's really interesting to see. But yeah, I'll go on about that kind of stuff forever. It's trying to think of like some other interpretations or like stories or movies that you could do that with, but it seems a little bit more rare. And I guess in like movies, there definitely are some you can look at back to back and get a lot out of, but I guess it's more just video games have a lot more symbolism and stuff like that, where you can just kind of pick it up and like you can also, I guess, fit more on screen because you can look around and find different characters and different environments and setup and stuff. Like, oh, it's great though, and you can get more out of stuff. It's neat. It's cool. You love it.
That did, with games, there's certainly more space and time. Something that, you know, as a character, that you can take a moment and really look at all of the signs and enter every building in a town. Whereas if it's a movie or a game, or sorry, if it's a movie or a show, that, you know, the character is gonna go to their destination, that you're gonna want to keep relatively good pacing, that you can't have them examining every shop or speaking with every NPC. It's just not going to work, and it means that you have that additional space for that world building.
Yeah, like it's very true. I also The Evil Within is also a really good one if you want to check out a game where you're kind of dropped in and you're like, okay, this is bad. I don't know what's going on. But if you have the context of the full game, holy crud, it's really, really interesting what's happening throughout of it. Like, there's, I could name like a million. There's just so many good ones, especially with horror, since you're dealing with like kind of the, I guess the concept of like the mind and like what's kind of going on with it. Like, there's a lot to discover there. Like, just so many different horror games kind of like go into like the psyches of the main characters, like jumping all the way back to Silent Hill. Like, you can play that game once and then read like a little lore guide and then play it again and go like, holy crud. Like, it's very old, so I'll talk about it a little. But with like Silent Hill 4, also it's the least like, I think, story heavy of them, like based on like the subtleties. So, but with like Silent Hill 4, like you play that game and you're like, oh, this sucks with this poor guy, like, you know, trapped in his apartment. But then as you start to play it again with certain things in mind, you're like, wait a second, this guy might have been like a shut-in before any of this crazy stuff started even happening. Like, this guy might have been starting to like be possessed before like any of like the stuff in the game was even really occurring, but didn't notice. It's incredible what you can do with like the subtlety of like games and other forms of media. Like, it's awesome. It's really cool. If you can play something like 10 times and still find stuff in it, that's so rad. That's so cool. And you see that these days. Like, I was actually watching like your previous episode with, I think, I'm so sorry if I get his name wrong. I think Duper, was it?
Duper.
Duper. Duper. Like, he was talking about how, I think it was Ocarina of Time? Or Majora's Mask, actually.
I think it was Majora's Mask. We spoke about that one for a while.
Majora's Mask. I'm actually very unfamiliar with Zelda. Like, very, very unfamiliar with Zelda. Like, but one of my buddies was telling me, like, apparently there's like just so many weird dark themes and like so many things you can do, and the stuff I was hearing in your interview with him too, where like if you go into different areas of like the time since the world's kind of ending, like one day before like the world ends, someone will give you like $20 and say it's their life savings. The day before it's like 200 and it's their life savings. Like, it really does tell a story.
Yeah,
with just those little things. Yeah.
The Majora's Mask is a time loop game where you're trying to prevent the end of the world within 3 days, and it's just that obviously it's going to take several iterations. You're going to have to wind back time however many times in order to actually reach the ending, and that the world at large is evolving and that the characters are doing different things at different times, and that your interactions with them earlier in the timeline will impact them later in the timeline. Like you said, the example of, you know, on the first day, if you speak with this one character, their life savings is 200 rupees, and you're going to get that. On day 2, it's 100 rupees because they've been spending it because they think the world's ending. And the fact that the writers went through all of that and had all those iterations. That's definitely in the same vein as the type of stuff we're talking here about
Yeah.
world building, and especially when it's something that is so contained, where it's not a big world, but since it
Yeah.
is such, since the axis of time is limited, that means that they're able to have this increased depth on all the other axes. And I'm
Yeah.
curious if, for you as a writer, obviously, I don't want you to dox yourself on any of the things that you've written, but when you write, do you find that you have any favorite methods or favorite examples that are just vague enough to explain here of hiding something in plain sight that someone is not going to get on their first read through?
Oh yeah. I actually have a book coming out that I didn't I won't say too much about it, but it definitely has that. I wrote like a little light novel isekai I was planning to release on Grimmi, and I just wanted to play video games on this account and uh release my novels on it. Like I originally
That's right.
even
You
had
did
it.
mention that
Yeah.
initially the concept of Grimmy was to give yourself an author pseudonym.
Yeah. Like I thought it would be really fun to just play horror games and like read the like novels and like short stories I come out with on stream. And I was like, oh okay, like I'll have like a little couple of people on here and I can advertise my book a little bit. And I didn't
And
expect people to
oops,
like the stream so much, which is really nice.
task
But
failed successfully.
yeah. So now it's just like, oh god, I'm gonna, because I'm especially when I first started, I've gotten a little better about it, but my social anxiety is just like through the roof. And sharing something that you've written yourself, like, um, I know that you're in like game development, which is a creative medium. It's you might feel sometimes where you're just like, this will never be perfect. This will never be perfect.
Oh
But
yeah, I think that is
yeah,
a constant truth for
yeah,
anyone in any creative medium, that it doesn't
yeah,
matter if you are a visual artist, it doesn't matter if you're a writer, it doesn't
yeah,
matter if you're, really whatever you create, that you are going to be your own worst critic because you are so intimately familiar with what has been created, that you know all of the flaws, you know all of the parts that gave you trouble, that you spent a lot of time on, that you might
yeah,
not be entirely satisfied with. Whereas for the most part, a consumer of that content or media, that when someone's reading a book, they aren't as likely to know, oh, I bet this particular chapter had to be written and rewritten a dozen times, but you know that.
yeah. Well, first of all, yeah, like when it comes to my books, like I won't talk about any of the ones that that I never mind. But with the ones I wanted to release on this on my streams, uh that I obviously wrote while I was stuck in a mansion, of course. Uh like essentially I've gotten really inspired by different like video games I've seen, where I try to kind of plot out what I want like the major themes or like the major villains or like the major concepts to be like 5 or 6 books ahead, and then put little things kind of related to them all the way back in the first one. So even if it's just like a fun, cute little story, well, kind of, it's about two people with like, it's about two people that feel like they've wasted their life, and like they're pretty young, so they haven't at all. Like they're, I think 27 and 32, but they just have a lot of, I guess, kind of, mental hangups and stuff. But they feel like they've just wasted everything, and they're having to work kind of cruddy jobs as they figure out what they need to do and stuff.
Midlife crisis.
Yeah, midlife crisis. Exactly, exactly. Also, if anyone's those ages, in no way have you wasted your life. The characters in the book are just supposed to be going through it, as as they say. So, anyways, but yeah, I even though it's just kind of about them like freaking out and struggling and arguing with people, like the overall themes of like just what it would be about later are still there, just because I did get so much into Ishikawa. And the book has a cat boy. Thank you, Kazu.
Very
Yes,
important.
extremely important. That I did not know would be important until that became apparent to people latch on to really crazy things. I'll say that.
People like cat boys and cat girls. People like cats.
People like cats. I don't totally get it, so I'm very, very surprised but happy for people. Um, but yeah, it's when I do my writing, I try really hard to just think about like what would the major thing that kind of like is, messing with everything throughout the entire story have to do with like the beginning, the middle, and the end? And is there a place that I can kind of insert that into and kind of push it with? Like, yeah, it's interesting though. I think there's definitely a lot of different kind of ways to write. I also just really like, any type of fiction and stuff, but I think it's so cool when you can like have a little thing that you don't even really notice start out and you go like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then like by the second one you're like, huh, that's a little bit weird. I guess it was related to that. And then by the third one you're like, oh, it was really related to that, and it kind of just keeps building up from there. That's definitely my preferred writing style, like taking in all of the world, but then just also taking in all of the history and like all of the future that you have planned and kind of trying to mash it together and make it impact the characters in a substantial way and tell it from their kind of small perspective rather than, it something could impact the entire world. Thousands of people could die, but if your character doesn't know about it, they wouldn't know about it until like the time comes. And it's writing is really fun. Writing is really cool. Like, I really encourage people that haven't tried it to just. We're not banning Catboys again, guys. We're past that. Okay, come on. Other stuff
I
going
like
on
that
here.
you had to stipulate again.
Yeah, it's eyes are cool. Yeah, it's. I like that it's just like, yeah, 1,000 people could die. There could be the worst stuff happening in all of humanity, and it's just like, but what about the cat boy?
What about
Like,
Catboys?
I've realized one thing. I've realized that people like a good story, but they like looking at what they're attracted to more. Like if they can get a nice, attractive character in a story they really like, maybe that's the key to success. I don't, I don't, I don't. I'm happy for everyone. That's there you go. I'm happy for everyone. That's very nice. I'm happy for all of you. There we go.
Well,
There we
speaking
go.
of seeing things that people like, one thing that I noticed, you have as part of your channel, if you scroll down into the channel description with all the panels and everything, that, alongside all the socials and the credits and things like that, that you have a Google form that is just open and that people can fill out and that they can submit one of two things. The first is cat pictures. This is not entirely surprising. I think it's not a common thing for sure, but I think it's very cool that you have, just open form of show me your pets. That's cool.
Yeah.
But the additional thing that they can submit, and you are the only person that I've ever seen with something like this, is that it is the form of show me your cat or your open refrigerator.
Yes. Okay. I guess I should say I have ADHD, so I have very weird, I guess, hyper obsessions and stuff. Like, I think everyone does to some extent, but, I think seeing someone's refrigerator is so interesting because you don't really think about it, but everyone eats very differently, and, like,
And it can say a lot
yeah,
about somebody of what do you stock your
yeah,
refrigerator with? What do you stock your pantry with? Of just, admittedly, my own refrigerator would be terribly boring. That I, for whatever reason, is seeing that form made me think about it. That I usually have more stuff that goes either in the freezer or the pantry, not as much the
yeah,
refrigerator.
yeah,
That my refrigerator is mostly going to have one, protein drinks, that I always just have a lot of protein drinks on hand of just,
yeah,
if I'm lazy and I don't want to cook, but I know I need to have
yeah.
nutrients, that it's very easy to just pick up a protein that, I don't work out very much. I'm not a bodybuilder type. I don't drink them for that reason. I like protein drinks because it's easy nutrients.
Exactly. I do really like that after a certain. I also drink protein drinks, and I do really like after a certain point, like when you get too busy, you're just like, okay, I need a workaround for dying. Like, I'm
Yep.
not gonna go downstairs and I'm not gonna cook something. I need to make sure that on those days, which is probably gonna be half of them, there's gonna be something I'll just consume, and it could be that it's a lot easier. But yeah, that says a lot about you. And I'm from the 1930s when refrigerators would explode sometimes. Like they were very different if you're from the 1930s specifically. It was a technology that wasn't really too far advanced, and for some reason they just exploded. No one really knew exactly why, but
To
I
be
think
fair,
they
a lot
figured
of
it.
things exploded in that day and age.
Oh yeah, no. I think a lot of people's first interactions with electricity were very
Shocking.
probably yeah, there you go. Yeah. But submit your fridges. I'm actually gonna do that for 5K. I forgot to say that.
Oh,
For
nice.
5K, yeah, we're gonna be looking through viewers' fridges if you want to submit. So
Yeah. I always
Um,
enjoy those types of streams that, you usually see show me your computer setup or show me, like your bedroom or some collection or things of that nature. And
yeah,
that refrigerator is a very interesting one because, like you said, that it can say a lot about a person of what they have in their diet, just, culturally or what they enjoy as their go-tos. And apart from protein drinks, the stuff that's mostly in my refrigerator that I usually have cold cuts of some variety for, once again, when I'm feeling a little bit lazy and want to make a simple sandwich or
yeah,
something like that. And then just leftovers that I usually have things like frozen meats and vegetables. And one of my go-to meals is just rice plus protein plus vegetable plus sauce. And
yeah.
that you have these 4 different variables and that I'm able to mix and match whatever I'm feeling on a given day. And that just most of these end up starting in the freezer. I make them and then the leftovers are stored in the fridge. But there isn't a ton of stuff that is just kept in the fridge to begin with for me for whatever reason. And I suppose the fact that my eating habits wind up in that pattern in and of itself is sort of an interesting thing because I know most folks are going to have as much in their refrigerator, if not more, than what they have in their freezer.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very interesting just to get an idea of like kind of the life someone has by looking in their fridge. Like sometimes it's nothing, sometimes it's like just a jug of milk, and they go like, I just go and I drink milk, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a lot of protein, I guess. And I had one friend who. The reason I really got into it was because whenever I went to a friend's house, I don't actually eat that much. Like, I don't eat that much at all, and I don't eat my friend's food. But I would always just be like, "Can I look in your fridge?" And they'd usually be like, "Yeah, I don't care. Be weird, I guess. Grimmi, do whatever you need to." And like, I'd go over there and I'd look in it, and like, there might be like bougie whole food stuff. There might be like weird like loaves of like things they've made themselves. There might be like just drinks. I'm definitely really guilty of that. I mostly just drink like drinks and then kind of forget food. But then there was also one where I went over to a friend's house, and it wasn't their like main fridge, and they lived in like a super bougie place, but like, uh, it was just pineapples. It was wall-to-wall pineapples, and
Now,
with
are
it,
we talking
yeah,
fresh,
yeah,
uncut pineapples, stem and
yeah,
all? Are we talking
yeah,
canned pineapples?
just
Huh.
pineapples. And I never asked them about it. I never wanted to know.
That's
I
interesting in
was just in
multiple
awe.
regards. The first of which being that fresh pineapples that until they are cut open, you can
Mhm.
just have a pineapple on the counter. That they are not inherently fruits that need to be refrigerated. They're
Yeah,
tropical fruits that they can be out and that's fine. Once you cut them open, you're going to want to refrigerate them. But if it's
yeah.
just wall to wall uncut pineapples, one, that's unnecessary. Two, I love pineapple. I am a avid
Oh,
defender of
nice.
pineapple on pizza.
Heck yeah.
At the same time, wall-to-wall pineapples is certainly a dietary choice.
Yeah, and I didn't want to ask about it. I never asked, like, is this like your mom's or like your dad's? Because they um,
Did you stock up
this
for a party or something? That like, are these all
maybe.
going to go somewhere? And I suppose the question is, you said that you would check their refrigerator on occasion. So was it just that this singular time it was wall-to-wall pineapples, or was this something that you saw with any regularity?
Oh, well, this was like one of I don't want to dox them, so I'm trying to think of like
Of course.
indicators I can give. But like they were from a very affluent family, and they had like other refrigerators. This one was like in uh, hmm, this. I'll just I don't think anyone can figure this out, but like they had like several smaller things on their property, like several smaller buildings, and
All right. Well,
sometimes like if they were busy, I just go looking.
I guess
And
if they just have a lot of pineapples, or rather, not a lot of pineapples, if they have a lot of refrigerators, that if this is not the refrigerator that you go to
yeah,
on a regular basis to get your food, that I suppose it makes sense that you might use that as storage. And then if it's something that, okay, I don't use pineapple on a daily basis, but
Yeah.
I have a stock for, if this is a affluent family that, that they entertain and that they host parties every so often, and that they just know, all right, we might have a party sometime in the next 2-3 weeks. And that's a bit
Yeah.
too long to have pineapples out on the counter or something. And when we have folks over, it's going to be a lot of folks. So we just keep this particular fridge stocked with pineapples. That way, when we are going to entertain, we know we can go there and have them on hand for all the
Yeah.
drinks and the fruit platters and whatnot. And that actually makes sense. That
Yeah.
it's a lot weirder if this is somebody's singular refrigerator where they go to multiple times a day to get their food. But the specification that this is an extra refrigerator, a storage refrigerator, actually makes this a lot less weird.
Yeah, it is less weird. It was in a basement refrigerator once, I think, and then I think I saw, because they also had multiple places. It's very hard. This sounds like very strange and fake, like it's a fever dream, and I'm just old and like decrepit and going like, and then in the other one they had the pineapples in the garage, but like they really did. But the thing is, I went to a lot of their parties. They never had pineapple there. I think someone was eating them. It's a mystery to me, but that's the kind of thing you get with fridges. You get mysteries, and you get complex personality traits. You get, yeah, I don't know. I could probably be a little calmer on the fridge stuff, but I'd love to see them if anyone would like to submit them. I'm actually probably gonna take that down and make it into a Twitter tag or like a Discord tag, so people can submit it. Just because I feel like it might make it a bit easier. But I've been so happy people have submitted fridges and cats, like especially cats. Like everyone, I know that if you have a cat, like that cat is like your baby, like they're your best friend. They're like a very seriously cool animal that you spend all of your time with, and like I just love getting to put up people's cats on screen and show them off, and I really want to get back into that. I actually got so many cats, I was like, oh god, I'm not gonna have enough time to show them all off and like praise them. I need to figure out a new system, so get ready for that too.
You
Get
just
ready
sort
for
of,
more cats.
start scheduling it that every 2 weeks or every month that you have the cat day. That I know I've seen a couple of Giga emotes in the chat tonight, and that Giga actually just earlier today had her bi-weekly, that it's her offering stream. That one of the things that she has as part of her community is that there is a channel on her Discord where people can just leave offerings. So that is, fan creations of any sort, or just pictures that people think that she will like, and that her community has the 3 factions, the monsters, the undead, and creatures. I'm probably butchering one of these, I can't remember which, but that every 2 weeks she will go through all of the submissions, and actually it just happened to be that this afternoon was one of those 2 days per month. So I could see that being for you, even if it's not quite enough to be every 2 weeks, then maybe every month or something, that you just go through the backlog of cats and refrigerators. But you mentioned specifically that you're planning for a 5K celebration. So I cannot actually recall, are you at 5K, or is it that it is very close and you're in preparation?
I'm at 5K. I actually, after this and after the game tonight, I'm gonna be putting it on my schedule. I'm actually at 5,563 now. It really...
We're almost at the 6K celebration.
Yeah. I've been very, and I don't exactly know what I'm doing, but I've been very blessed that people have really liked what I've been doing. So yeah, we're continuing to grow very, very big and very quickly, and it's very nice. I don't know what I'm doing. So, oh yeah, and at 10K, if we make it to 10K, I'm gonna be doing stand-up comedy, and I don't know how that's gonna work. I think I'm gonna try to find maybe people to be in a Discord call with me that might laugh at my jokes. Like, I'm gonna have to be very selective.
Yeah, they did. I can imagine that, that's something where you like having the audience feedback, and chat is certainly one form of feedback, but for stand-up comedy, that having the laughter is just, I would imagine, very reassuring as a performer there. And it's the thing that I'm now sort of racking my brain. Have I ever seen someone do like dedicated stand-up comedy? And don't get me wrong, there's a number of VTubers that their content and just the way they carry themselves could be considered stand-up comedy, just, that they're wacky and crazy folks. But
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen somebody do, you have people who do karaoke streams and that it is specifically for that type of thing. I don't think I've ever seen a VTuber do a stand-up comedy routine or set. So that sounds like it'll be super fun, though, that I hope you're able to figure out something that ends up working for you, because that is going to be, if not entirely new ground, that it is relatively unexplored territory. So really interesting, really excited to see where that ends up going.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna program a soundboard for
Actually,
the
that
event.
could be good. That I've seen
Yeah.
some folks that are just really, really good with soundboards, and that, in lieu of a proper laugh track, I've seen a couple that just have press a button, get a laugh track, but that,
Ah,
that's going to end up being some of their props. That sometimes they'll, have props with their model,
ah.
but that they can do different zany things to add to their routine, as it were.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Like it definitely would maybe help to have canned laughter, but I think it's going to be quite awkward. I think it's going to be quite weird. I definitely wouldn't mind writing a set based on like Twitch stuff or like something fun or interesting like that, but it's just gonna be uncomfortable for everyone. Everyone's gonna be like, "Oof, I don't want to watch this anymore."
Well,
It's
that's
gonna be
why it's the celebration
yeah,
for 10K. So that at that
yeah,
point, one, you can have yourself and your community sort of enter in of, all right, this is some experimental stuff. This
yeah,
might not work, but that
yeah,
you have that expectation going in, and usually you're going to have folks being supportive of, even if it takes some workshopping. That at that point you're going to have folks that are going to be cheering you on regardless, and I think that you're definitely setting yourself up for as much success as is feasibly possible there. So I'm looking
yeah.
forward to seeing that, because like you said, you're already at 5.5K. I think that 10K, it's going to be a when, not an if, and it's just going to be when.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get it down to 9K by the end of the stand-up stream. It'll be, it's gonna be a little painful. I just I can't imagine just doing jokes and going like, all right, joke. Waiting a second for laughter. There's no laughter. It's a completely empty void of
Well, that's why you have on the
nothingness.
soundboard the cricket button.
Yeah, maybe I'll invite Rin and Kitty Flute and they can laugh occasionally. I'll invite all my nice friends and I'll be careful not to invite anyone that'll heckle me at the top of their lungs, which would I guess be realistic. We'll
Or
have a couple
invite
of
exactly
hecklers.
one heckler, but make sure they're a
Yeah,
good heckler.
yeah, I'll invite one good heckler, and then we can have an awkward 10K show where I start fighting with someone in the audience, and then Kit, yeah, there you go. Let's go, Kit. Let's go. Uh, it'll be physically painful. I can't wait for it. I think the refrigerators will be a little bit easier though, and a little bit sooner. So, yeah, excited for that. Excited for that. Oh,
Definitely. And we have already been at it for 2.5 hours now. Time has
oh my gosh.
absolutely flown. I know you have another stream on your own channel in just a bit. So I do want to start winding down, make sure you have at least a bit of time between the two. The last questions that I always ask my guests, first off, do you have any goals for the remainder of the year? So we're past the halfway point of 2022. You have hit partner, you have hit 5K. We know that 10K is a thing. Is 10K one of the goals for the end of the year, or do you have other goals that might be less metric based of, I want to try this other
Hmm.
type of stream, or that I want to have this first book published under the name of Grimmi? Do you have anything at all that you're really trying to hit before we get into 2023?
Yeah, well, I definitely love to have that book fully published. I'm just waiting back on the art from the person, and then I'm trying to get like the PDF formatted. I need the art for it though to format it. For the physical copy of it. Um, I'd love to get that done for sure. It's taken a little longer than I thought it would. As for other stuff, a point redeemable laugh. That might be fun for that. But sorry, going back to the other thing. My goals are pretty random though. Like I kind of just feel like I'm floating along doing whatever, and I'd love to reach out to like other people and kind of start to like what you're doing, like with like interviewing people. I've always really wanted to like interview like specifically like horror VTubers and specifically like horror game like developers. Like I feel like they have such an interesting way of looking at the world to get to the point where they've kind of stop being as afraid of horror and start kind of going like super into it. Like that's one of the things I've wanted to start a little. As for everything else, like I was kind of at a point where I was so shy and so scared when I started doing VTubing that I'd like to start doing like more collaborations with people and trying to kind of just get a better sense of like who everyone is and like really support them the best I can and stuff. Like I know that I tend to be a little bit more introverted sometimes, but it's I guess they're not like follower goals or like subscription goals or like anything like that, but I definitely want to just start, I guess, putting myself out there more in ways I haven't, and improving my streams in ways I haven't. Like thanks to Jazz, Skelter was incarnated to look a little different and behave a little differently, and I'm definitely excited to see what I can do in terms of just like, you know, finding another model, doing 2.0 and stuff like that. I don't know if I can get another model by the end of the year and have it rigged, but you know, it's been really cool, and I feel like there's a million different goals I have, and I'd like to work on all of them so much. Also, sorry, I know that ADHD makes it impossible to like just go like this one thing now.
No,
But
trust me. That you
yeah.
know, as a talk show host, I love this because it means that you always have stuff to say. That ADHD on a
Oh
show like
yeah.
this is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, I definitely do love. I'm not criticizing anyone when I say that. I just I know that sometimes my tangents become so long and so intense, but I'd love to I guess continue writing, make some like fun little fan games and stuff, and I think I'm on track to have a lot of like stuff done by the end of the year, as well as you know, just keep applying for like voiceover roles and like anything I can really get into. Like I've just been so excited to get out there. VTubing's rad. I guess I have no goals. I just want to keep doing it. I want to keep
Just keeping things
yeah,
going. That's
yeah.
still a goal in and of itself, of just making sure that you know, you're still having fun, that you're not burning out, that
Oh
you
yeah.
clearly have all those other goals of, you know, the book, being able to do those different types of streams, that on top of that, of, like I said, just keeping going and
Yeah.
figuring out what works for you, that there is that sort of perpetual goal that everybody has, and it's not always something that people say aloud or necessarily even mentally register as something that, yes, it does take the effort and the upkeep to just keep going, and that keeping going is certainly an admirable goal. That
Yeah.
I think you've got a lot of stuff going for you, Grimmy, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where you are by the end of the year and beyond.
Well, thank you. And I've noticed, Fuzzy, have you gone through burnout? I actually have. I like, oh gosh, probably like 3 or 4 times now while I've been streaming. You know, I wish I could say that it's just always easy to go out there and like keep streaming, but I think everyone goes through. I'm sure you have as well, like with that, like where it's just been kind of hard to keep going and like kind of, how do I put it? Force yourself to do the thing when you aren't feeling it 100%. Like,
I've been able to keep myself very consistent with VTuber
yeah.
Talk, partially by design of this being a once a week thing. I can imagine that if I tried to make, you know, 2 or 3 times a week, that I'd be much more prone to burnout, but I've absolutely had burnout in other areas of my life on other projects, and
I feel
perhaps that may be part of why I've been so
you.
deliberate with the VTuber Talk pacing and been able to, at least thus far, sort of avoid that here. But it's still the type of thing that I recognize inevitably most folks are going to feel some degree of burnout on any given project at some point in time. So just, you know, being that little bit of proactive and figuring out, okay, when you do hit that point of burnout, how do you course correct and just make
Yeah.
sure that it doesn't completely derail that project permanently, because if you don't have the ability to do that course correction, to do that maintenance, then you're gonna see something just completely break apart, and you never really want that to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. I've realized with that, like, with burnout specifically, I feel like my biggest problem is that especially like I was saying, ADHD. I know I've talked about it a few times before as we've been speaking, but um, and I don't usually talk about it too much during my streams because I feel like I don't know. I don't want it to be like the thing that like defines me. And it's totally cool if people are represented and stuff. Like, I just feel like uh, I don't want people to look at me and go like ADHD, like, but it's very obvious. But the thing is, like, I feel like with that, it's made it very hard because I tend to, and I think this is something that got me noticed early on, especially by Twitch's algorithm. And I don't recommend this for everyone because it seems a little unhealthy, but I can't put down a game when I really end up enjoying it. Like, I physically can't put it down. Like, it'll be like 10 to 12 hours, and then it'll be like, okay, I guess I'm still waking up in a couple of hours, but I also want to get back on all these DMs, and like, it tends to go in like a giant loop of kind of like, oh, you probably have this too as a developer, like, just overwork. Like, you tend to get to a point where you're like, okay, shoot, I have so much I need to let me see you as a real person. Don't break my illusion. Thank you, Edible Ghost. You're right. I don't have edible. I don't have ADHD. I also tend to like get words really confused for some reason. But it's called having an addiction. It's also I
Yeah,
also developed
it
OCD.
happens
Yeah.
when you're really passionate about
Yeah.
something, and that uh, since my path in the industry has meant that I've been part of larger teams, that I've never been part of those, 1 to 5 person development teams where
Mm.
I'm, just super heads down and having to do a million things all at once uh, to make sure something gets out the door. That I have fortunately thus far been able to keep a relative balance where I haven't had that problem with work,
Mm.
but certainly with some other personal projects, I've had instances where, yes, you just get so into it because you're so passionate about it and because you're having such a good
Yeah.
time that you just
Exactly.
blink and oops, it's 3 a.m. And
Yeah.
well, I still need to do these other things. And then, you just sort of accept, okay, I might not get a ton of sleep tonight. And that to let that happen every so often, that's okay. That you just want to make sure that it doesn't become a perpetual thing, because
Yeah.
that's when it can delve into unhealthy territory. But yes, I'm very much familiar with that. I have, fallen just into a game or into a project,
Yeah.
and that the next thing you know, you've spent an entire day on it and are giving up sleep, and that you're not even phased by it. That you're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm all right with this. And as long as it doesn't become doing that for 2 weeks, that you're usually
Yeah.
going to be okay.
Exactly. Yeah, not getting much sleep might as well get. That's exactly what I fall into. I felt so bad because
I've gotten very good at
like
napping. That's one of my secrets. That I know it's not something everyone can do, but I'm actually able to just lay down for 20, 30 minutes and be able to just
yeah.
scrape together what bits of sleep I'm able to get and cobble it
Wow.
into not a proper night's sleep, but into something where I'm able to keep going the next day.
Enough to drive to work or enough to get on your computer and do what you have to in order to keep living
Yup.
inside an apartment or a house. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. I that's something. You know what? Actually, that's my goal for the end of the year. Um I want to get much better about having a regular food, sleep, working schedule. Like, I'd even like to try to like calm down on needing to do other stuff besides like VTubing maybe, like or not VTubing, the opposite, besides working maybe. Like, cuz I really enjoy streaming. Um it's just there's only so much time, and at one point I remember, I'm glad people liked it because I remember I was having a collaboration with a friend, and I didn't eat like the day before, and I was so
Uh-oh.
tired. And I had like just woken up like maybe like 2 minutes before we were supposed to like start setting up, and like it went fine, but we were also like yelling at each other the whole time. But I think that's what people were okay with that. But at the same time, I was like, oh my god, like I need to start calming down so I can be a human again. Like that's my goal. Getting 3 straight meals a day. At least 2. At least 1. Like sometimes you just have like,
Yeah, that
half a box of
one
Tic
good
Tacs.
meal, and then just like getting naps, that you don't necessarily
Yeah,
need to have big, huge meals. That a protein drink here, a granola bar there, and
yeah,
just that you
yeah,
can have a healthy diet of snacking, assuming that the snacks are at least mildly nutritious. And don't get me wrong, you
yeah.
can have some junk food in there, but
Oh
as
yeah,
long as it's not all junk food, that
yeah,
I've definitely made full days of just, like I said, protein drink here, granola bar there, a cookie here, and a corn dog there, or something like that.
yeah. No, 100%. Like I think that's really good advice, and it's just I've noticed that like uh if my roommates go out, sometimes they'll get me something extra, or like they'll have leftovers, and it's like, oh, I get to eat. I'm gonna have like a good meal today. But that's not. That's like a. It's like what a hobo would do. Like, I need to get a little better about yeah, exactly. Getting those protein drinks in. Like some days I'll even just like go like protein drink and drink like 3 sips and be like, oh, I'm doing so well. And I'll get like 6 hours later and I'll be like, oh, I didn't drink this. This is still
Oops.
here. Yeah, like that's a raccoon thought process. Yeah. I guess so. Just like I run around the house like kneading my hands together like a little raccoon, going like, hey. Do you want to eat those fries? You want to eat, you gonna eat all those fries? But
Hey, whatever gets
sometimes
things done.
yeah, whatever, it do be like that. But
Mhm.
no, but honestly, I think that's what I'm gonna work on, and I implore anyone else in this situation to do that as well. You're not gonna feel good if you go several days without food. Uh, it's
Yes,
that's very
eating food is
obvious,
a
but
generally advisable course of action.
yeah, like if you do long streams, you have to just start. I've just started eating during the like it's maybe not the nicest thing that like I think people can handle me eating like a cucumber over the course of 2 hours rather than me passing out or
Yeah, hey, that
yeah,
the streamer eating on stream is better than the streamer not streaming.
yeah, exactly. Like I tend to do like 10-hour streams pretty often if I get into something, and it's you gotta, I guess, adapt to the stuff around you and realize you won't be perfect. I think that's also
And just know
something. Yeah,
yourself, know your limits,
yeah,
and that there may be the occasional time that you discover a limit because you accidentally exceeded, but then for the
yeah.
next time at least. And as long as you're mindful of, okay, I remember this limit because there was this one time that things went wrong, and I'm going
Oh
to
yeah,
work to avoid that in the future. That's still growth. That's still learning.
yeah. No, that's very fair. It's something where I think what happens usually is a lot in a lot of times in life, like there's times where you run into a problem and you go like, okay, it's impossible. I'll just avoid the problem until it becomes so big it's just overwhelmingly bad. Like and it's not a good way to react to it. Like I think probably like what I've learned with streaming the most is like if there's a problem you can fix it initially and then it's just done. Then you don't have to worry about it ever again. Then it's just like something you have in like your arsenal of like stuff you can pull out and do
Mm-hmm.
instead of just going like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just die. Like that's like
Yeah.
there's a lot of good lessons to be learned from taking up any new hobby, but I think VTubing is just very broad and you meet a lot of nice people and they all have a lot of really fun, interesting things to say and help you with and stuff, and vice versa with you. And I'm sure you've helped a ton of people too. I'm definitely thinking like, okay, gonna drink that protein shake today, 1000%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us actually perfectly to the last question. It's one I ask all my guests,
Mhm.
and that is, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that's not what is the
Mm.
definition of a VTuber, but to you, Grimmy, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And I've had all sorts of answers. That some people have a very clinical answer where it's, they say it is a tool in my toolbox as a content creator. It's a
Oh
mask that
wow.
I wear for entertaining, and that I use it for content purposes. Others have a very personal answer, and I've had folks say it lets me get in touch with my inner child, or it lets me be someone that I can't be in real life. And both sides of that spectrum and beyond are totally valid, but
Yeah.
being a VTuber ends up meaning different things to different people because it is something that is so personal and has so much room for variety, not just in the visual aesthetics, but how you use it. And it creates these very special relationships of just people and the mere concept of VTubing. So for you, Grimmi, what does being a VTuber mean to you?
You know, I like people's answers in chat. Like, it just, yeah, you could do it without pants, I guess. I'm wearing pants. I always wear pants while I'm VTubing. I want to make that very clear. But, you know, I think it's gonna sound quite weird, but, I feel like if you grow up in a certain environment, you kind of feel like you can't really... And not in a negative way. I'm in a very positive place of my life now, but you kind of always feel like you're doing something wrong. Like, you feel like you're doing something wrong if you are around people that are going through a lot. And I think with VTubing, it's kind of taught me that it's kind of okay to just be yourself. It's definitely made me feel more outgoing with people just in my day-to-day life. And I think it's also taught me that, like, you know, how do I put it? There's definitely a lot of bad actors with, like, any sort of, like, I guess, you know, internet stuff. Like, there's
Statistically
definitely...
speaking,
Yeah.
anytime you get a large number of people, there's going to be a handful that suck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be like that for sure, but it's, I guess it's taught me it's, like, it's kind of okay to, like, believe in people and support them in, like, the amount that you can, like... I guess what VTubing means to me is just, like, it's kind of like a big community, but I'm really happy to see everyone kind of going through it and being so different and being so excited about it. Like, you can watch one person that, you know, is completely different from someone else that you just really, really like as well. Like, everyone can kind of showcase who they are, and in real life, you know, we have these physical bodies and people see them and go like, that person must be like this, or this person must be like this, but with VTubing, people can kind of show off who they want to be, and I love supporting people with that. It's just a really interesting way of hanging out and interacting with people and kind of just, you know, getting to entertain people. Like, I wouldn't be able to entertain people the way I do if I was just, you know, I guess a person. Like, you know, like, I'd have a very different setup. Like, there's so many interesting things you can do with it, and I've just been so excited to see people at, like, the highest rung of it, like, who have, like, crazy cool streams where, like, they have a million things going on, and then, like, people at, like, you know, just the starting out, where even they have, like, things that make them really special and one of a kind. I guess VTubing is just a way to showcase your creativity and talk to people you usually wouldn't, and go like, wow, this, you know, there's been so many people I get along with that I thought I wouldn't have, and there's been so many people that, like, you get to kind of see grow and, like, support and go like, yeah, she's doing it, yeah, she's doing it. It's, I guess when I started, I didn't realize what people were probably thinking that about me, and now I see it for, like, the same kind of people that, you know, I watch and go and lurk, and, like, it's neat. I guess it's just a matter of, VTubing means that you can do anything, and you can really take the time to get to know someone in ways that you wouldn't usually get to, and you can, I don't know, it's I don't know exactly how to wrap a bow around it, but it,
No, I think it makes perfect sense for you, and especially someone that, you know, your initial approach to VTubing was perhaps a bit more clinical in that, all right, this is going to be potentially a tool that I can use as a author pseudonym. But then you fell into things and really developed that more personal relationship with VTubing and with people in the community in ways that you might not have even expected. And, you know, you talk about all these different varieties in terms of just how people carry themselves, how people create their content, different personalities, people being able to really grow in the community and be able to achieve all these different wonderful things, and that that it's perhaps just a delightful, unexpected discovery even, but that has been a integral part of your own journey with VTubing. And I always ask that particular question to wrap up a show because, one,
Yeah.
I think it helps bring things together and put a bit of a bow on things, but also, while I never know what somebody is going to say as an answer before they say it, whenever somebody answers that question, I feel it always makes sense for them of just knowing somebody, even over the course of a couple hours, and from having seen however many streams of theirs I have before I have them on my show, that things always, even if not in the way that I necessarily would have expected, that I'm always able to sort of draw a line like, oh, yes, this fits because this, that, the other, and that's consistent with things that we've talked about even during this show. And that
Yeah.
for you, that I think VTubing, perhaps in a word, is rooted in creativity. And
Yeah.
that's sort of, going in all the different places that you were talking about, but that's sort of in a single word boiling down where it all stems from. And that makes sense for you just as a writer and as someone who appreciates world building and creativity in your media, that's one of the things that you would inherently gravitate towards.
Yeah. I think you're right. Like, I think as you were saying that too, like it just I think, like everyone just makes their avatar and like puts little different uh like, baubles on them and stuff, but it really does let you kind of see people's best self. And it really does kind of let you see like a view of like how they want to be and present themselves to the world in a very cool way. Like, if you look at like Sigrid and Bird, like they look totally different than like, I don't know, like someone like bad at video games. And like they both exist in the same type of stuff. They both are really, really, really cool channels. Like, there's just so many cool ways to present yourself, and I feel like in this specific medium, it's so easy to like go like, yeah, like you can really root for them and encourage them and hope that like they get everything they want out of life and like that it's just really neat. I just love VTubers. I think they're really cool. I think that like it's incredible that you can find someone that, you know, is kind of like a dreary, really weird, insane person like me, and I can get along with people like Grin, and there's Kit, who's kind of the devil, and Kitty Flute, and like just all the friends I've made through this. But then there's like Gingy, who's like a goblin, and Alfina, who's like a cool witch, and like Jones, who's like a skeleton, and like it's you kind of just get to see everyone's best selves and support them and hope that they can get everything they want, and it's awesome. Like I I know that there's always going to be some weird people out there, but I'm happy to support the people that I've gotten to meet, and I want to support more people and kind of see how their creative stuff goes. And like it's rad. VTubers are rad. 10 out of
VTubers
10.
are rad. 10 out of
Yeah.
10. That's
Yeah.
very much that VTuber Talk would not exist if there weren't so many interesting people to talk to, and that goodness knows I'm spoiled as a host that I know that I will never be able to speak with and interview all of the awesome VTubers out there. So I'm definitely spoiled for choice in that I never have to worry about running out of folks, and it's just that's part of the fun part of the journey for me. But I had wanted to let you go a little bit earlier,
Oh
but then
no,
we wound
no.
up talking
This
again,
is
and just
this is how
that
it always
that
goes. Don't worry.
and hey,
I,
that's a sign of a good show for me. That's absolutely the sign of a good show. I'm more worried for you that I know you have a stream coming up
oh,
in a little bit. So, an interesting
it's okay.
question: would you like us to raid somebody else, or do you want to just spin up your own stream right now? We can raid into yours and have people sit on the starting soon screen. I don't know if you're going to want to take a longer break after this before you start your
Oh,
stream for the night, or how you want to do things.
I mean, we could raid into mine. Um, we could raid into mine, but I feel like there's a lot of good VTubers out there, and I'd love to give them a chance too. Like, there's even there's someone
Who's
that
live? Who would you like to send us to?
oh gosh, there's so many good VTubers. Uh, like there's Mikon. Mikon's so sweet, and I know that everyone here would really like her. I'm sure a lot of people. Oh, Edible Ghost is already saying. I'm sure a lot of people would already even like, know of Mikon here, but she is. I don't know if you've talked to her or interviewed her, but
I have
she's
not.
adorable.
After
Oh,
9, or so
she's
is the username just Mekon, or is there
it's
additional characters that I would need?
I'll send it to you through Discord, even though I forgot my
Perfect.
computer was my
Oops.
keyboard's
Oh yeah,
broken.
no
I'm
wait, the
like, so
keyboard's
thanks to
broken.
you. Can I send this? How do you send without using a key? Oh no. There we go. I know that you guys are. Hey everyone, would you like to go type in Mekon's name into the
Yeah,
her
just
full
send it in chat here, and that way I know what to enter for the raid command.
My keyboard broke as I was making the tweet for
No Mia
this.
Mekon.
I don't
Okay,
know
cool.
how I'm like this. So I'm gonna go take one of my roommate's keyboards that won't need it for a little bit and beg them. So, and then I'm gonna probably buy one on Amazon very soon also. But Mekon's really great. She there's so many good VTubers on though. I wish we could rate all of them. But Mekon's adorable. She's very rough and tumble. She's very sweet. She's very friendly and insane, and that's a 10 out of 10 VTuber right there. That's that's a 10 out of 10.
Awesome,
So,
awesome. Well,
yeah.
Grimmi, you yourself are a 10 out of 10 VTuber. That for folks in chat, if for some crazy reason you aren't already following Grimmi here on Twitch and Twitter, be sure to do that. I've been sure to shout her out in the chat, and obviously her links are right there at the bottom of the screen. If you are watching after the fact on YouTube, hi YouTube, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Obviously, we're gonna have all the links for Grimmi down in the video description. Thank you, Edible Ghost, for the follow. And if you all feel like following me, feel free to do so. It's just Vtuber Talk here on Twitch and on Twitter. I do these shows approximately once a week. I cannot promise any regularity in terms of dates and times because I always try to work around my guest schedules. But, if you see me around, maybe pop back in and maybe you'll discover somebody that you've never seen before. Extra Fuzzy, thank you for the follow as well. So, thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been so delightful. This has been one of those shows that I know, like, if you weren't already streaming tonight, we probably could have gone a little bit longer. But at the same time, I feel like, hey, we left them wanting more, Grimmi. We left them wanting more. And that now, folks, be sure to, stick around for Mekon for a little bit. Check out Grimmi later because, like she said, she's prone to going on for a little while. So I'm sure that she'll be streaming for a good chunk of time. There was one other follow here that I missed. JayzX, thank you for the follow. So again, thank you all so much for stopping by, and thank you, Grimmi, for making time for me to just, come and hang out and talk. There were so many things that we didn't even get to that we were thinking we might be able to talk about. We sort of found our footing with the, different game development ideologies.
Yeah.
We hadn't mentioned Final Fantasy XIV at all when we spoke the other day. We just fell headfirst into that one. That was great. It's been a while since I've spoken about that with someone. Like I said, if you aren't already familiar with Min, Party Demoness, that you're going to want to talk to her. And I can definitely refer you to some other folks that I've spoken with over these now 73 episodes that are big horror buffs as well. So if you ever end up deciding to do your own horror show, just let me know and I'll have some recommendations for you.
Yeah, like I definitely I feel very like, I know that my growth has been pretty abnormal, but the biggest thing is I just kind of want to share it, and I kind of want people that are, into like horror streamers in general to go and check out other ones. Like that's been, and not even just horror streamers, like Mekon's not, and she's cool. Mekon's rad, but I want to, try to get other people to check out other people. And we're running out of time, but guys, please follow VTuber Talk if you haven't. They have done some amazing interviews, and I was checking out their YouTube. Like, a lot of interviews that you guys would be interested in. Like, I can tell already, like, I won't get into the names because we have like 1 minute left and then I have to start my stream.
No. I'm not on the time limit, Grimmi. It's you're the one that has the stream after this, not me. I'm done for the day.
Oh no, everyone knows I'm gonna be late though. But you guys, please check out VTuber Talk. They've done so many interesting interviews, and like I was watching one with someone I had never heard of before, and it was incredible what they were going into. It was incredible, and I loved every second of it. So please, if you haven't followed them, or if you're shy and you want to wait until after to follow, you can do that too. Like, but you guys have a really good night, and thank you so much for having me on here. Yeah, good job, Kazoo. Good job. Mine.
Thank you, Cancer Kazoo. Thank you all, everybody in chat. Thank you, Grimmi. You have a fantastic rest of your night. I will see you all next time. Stick around. We're going to be raiding into Mekon. See you later, everybody. Bye.